One and guess what? We're
Oh, we're
live.
live.
Yeah, we're here. Hey, what's up, Anthony?
We've arrived. Hey,
How you
it's
doing
so good
today?
to be here. I love being here.
What do you want
I'm
to talk
good.
about?
Oh, lots of stuff.
You're definitely here. So first of all, I'm here with Anthony. Is it Rispo or Respo?
Rispo.
Rispo.
Unless you're from Southern California, Respo.
Okay, so it's Anthony Rispo. And obviously we're going to talk about one of the main reasons you're here to talk about stories to songs, which is a musical mini-series you're working on.
Yeah.
But I think, what's important for whoever's about to listen is or watch is that is such a heavy project. It's not just the stories to songs. It's not your typical thing. You're definitely talking about some serious stuff. So even though a majority of this conversation might be about the project, there's a lot of things underneath that project that I think we want to talk about. So today might be about like depression and loss and I don't know, worry and doubt and all those negative feelings that give us anxiety. Like I'm sure.
Definitely.
Well, I saw your Facebook post this morning. You said you were anxious about being
a little
here.
bit, and not in like a really a nervous way, but just thinking about how I've not really, talked about these things, but my own life, publicly, or I've struggled to talk about them publicly.
Yeah, and I think this is important for you because one of the things that I believe in is that a lot of times like the thing that you're afraid to do or the thing that's fearful is actually the thing that you need to do.
Yeah, I remember you said that last time. I love that.
Yeah, because it's like who does it help? So you have these things bottled up inside of you, just like so many of us do. Who does that help when you just keep them bottled up?
Right. And it's the main thing about that is that I realized I can't really be something. Well, this is like the typical saying, you can't be something for others if you're not for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
But it's true. And these cliches pop up once in a while and they like hit you right in the face. And it's like, hey, I'm real. I'm actually, it's true. You can't be something for others if you're not, addressing yourself. And one of the things that I had to arrive at over time, especially with stories to songs being the foundation of this sort of thought process for me, of addressing my own emotions, addressing the things that I dealt with in the past, and is that it's uncomfortable, but you go into that discomfort a little bit and you lean into it and you make friends with it, and that's where you learn your freedom. That's where you learn how to understand yourself.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about like ignoring it or removing it, but it's integrating whatever that is into your life.
Yep.
So you're going to take what it sounds like is you're going to take these things that definitely bother you or something in your past and actually use it to help the next person and yourself as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a great message. I believe in that because, like, I think what a lot of people don't realize is usually the thing that somebody goes into, whether it's a profession-wise or an activist cause, the thing that they're trying to help with is the exact same thing that they struggled with themselves.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point because that was always in the back of my mind going into this, or just in general, that has been in the back of my mind. But especially with stories to songs, like I went into this not fully embracing that what you just said. I think it was denial. I think it's a little bit of denial. Like, no, I started actually visiting mental health facilities and even started working at one point for a brief, period of time until I realized I really couldn't do that because I was not dealing with my own stuff, but I didn't want to head on address the fact that, hey, maybe I am depressed. Hey, maybe I have some kind of anxiety disorder. And I'll get to that in a minute about disorders and stuff, but, and labeling and all that. Maybe I have some underlying issues, maybe, all these maybes, which for an anxious person, when you start to ask all these questions, they themselves become little firings of like, anxiety. And then you actually have these like full blown anxiety attacks, which I ended up having.
It compounds on itself if you don't address it.
Yeah. But just the act of asking, like having these revelations caused a lot of anxiety and I pushed them away. But then I kept on going with this idea of, oh my God, I'm going to start this thing that really, songwriting kind of came to me at a very bleak and difficult time in my life. It was about 2014, 2015. And really it just started out as writing thoughts down and some poetry. And if you really want to get to the bare bones of where this all came from,
Yeah, because I know like
Yeah.
some of you being here today, and I don't know how far you go into it, is because you were one of the
Right.
things you were anxious about coming here today is like
Opener.
I haven't talked about these things
Oh, yeah.
that much privately and definitely not publicly.
Yeah. Well,
So I don't know how much you want to go into. And
Well,
for anybody listening or watching, I'm in an old building and the heat's going on. So if you hear like clanking, I'm so aware of what's happening. And
it's a torture chamber downstairs, right?
So just so
heathens,
everybody
I'm
knows
just
that. So yeah, so really like your motivation, as much as you can go into it, you feel comfortable with.
Actually, okay, so it's going to be kind of out of order, but it'll make sense as we go. Back in 2015, 2014, I was going through a difficult time, was in therapy for just lots of anxiety, panic attacks. Went to a therapist.
And you didn't know why you were having panic attacks?
No, I didn't really know. I'd always been an anxious child. I'd always been pent up and easily bothered by things, stuff that we will address. Now I know those things.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was having this physiological reaction to my stress and anxiety. And so I went to therapy, and my therapist at the time was more about mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy and shifting your thought patterns to different patterns and breathing and meditation.
And mindfulness, just because mindfulness is such like one of those like terms that's thrown around a lot. Mindfulness could be something as simple as like the next time you eat celery or whatever vegetable you're eating, or even celery. A chip. Yeah. I love celery too. That's why I brought it up. Is like celery. Actually like almost close your eyes and listen to the crunch, feel like visualize your teeth going through the celery, like actually get back to enjoying the food instead of just, shoving your mouth and swallowing it. But so mindfulness would just be like being present about what you're doing and actually use as many senses as possible to experience that thing, even on the smallest level.
Yeah.
So even right now, and like I want to use my ears as best as possible, understand what you're saying and what's coming through. I'm very mindful at this moment of everything that's going on.
Yep.
Exactly. So it's just mindfulness. Yeah. So,
well, and then all your neurons are acting in that one moment, firing all these messages saying the crunch, the coldness of the celery, that all these associations.
I'm very mindful of the cold weather today.
Oh, I'm mindful of the cold weather, but I'm grateful for the sunshine, because if it was if it were like, if the clouds were out, then I would be it would be one of those days where you just want to, snuggle up. But yeah, just like, so getting all those associations and being in the moment, we worked on that a lot. Like everything you just said, just one thing we worked on was compartmentalizing, not in an unhealthy way where you're just like suppressing things, but it was like taking these thoughts and putting them in a boat, sitting on a beach. We started out with like the breathing, getting the nervous system in a nice place where you can actually do this. Because that's the thing a lot of people don't realize. Meditation and mindfulness, you really need to have your body quite literally needs to be ready, prepped, like your nervous system, your heart rate, everything. You can't just like sit down and expect things to happen. You have to get yourself,
and you have to be open to it, to the possibility that this is something that could actually benefit.
Right. And when your nervous system, when you're there and ready to go and calm, then there's a portal, like in some sense, not, in a metaphysical sense, but it could be, but in a mental sense, you're giving yourself that ability to get to the next, level. And so I would visualize being on a beach and breathe and calm down, and then would put all these thoughts in a boat and send it away on, for a while across the world, and watch it was very specific, like watch the boat. It's a sailboat, or a big, boat with the big sails, and the measured breaths would relate to, or would match, the boat sailing away, and then so slightly you'd see the sail disappear and disappear and disappear into the horizon, and then it's away, it's gone. So it kind of forces you to, I don't like forces, but it kind of puts you in that place where you're not only calming your body down, but you're calming. Well, I guess your mind is different from your body. That's a whole other topic.
You're giving your brain a chance to like the proverbial, like, breathe.
Yeah.
So what you do, because I have a quick exercise, that because I think some people that want to go into meditation are like, oh my God, I can't sit there and not think about anything for 30 minutes. You really don't even need to do 30 minutes. So even what you're talking about, if you get to a split-second state where all you're thinking about is that breath and that boat moving away, you've just achieved the first step of meditation. And that's all you got to do. It's just that quick moment. You may have a thought come in, like as you're breathing and mentioning the sailboat, like a thought might come in and it's like, hey, you got that bill to pay. Just go back to the breath, go back to the boat, and just stay on that. And then it's like a muscle, and you work that up. And your first time meditating, you might only be able to do it for like 3 minutes,
right?
But just like a muscle, just like you try to start running over time, you could build that up, and you'll feel less of those, which I'll say, crazy thoughts, or just uninvited thoughts.
The monkey brain.
Yeah, and you'll see them come into your brain less and less and less.
And I'm doing a half justice to Viktor Frankl. I mentioned this. I said this quote last week when I was here, or earlier this week. I don't remember. But something about stimulus and response, and in between the two lies our freedom for growth. Viktor Frankl was a prisoner of war, a Jewish prisoner of war, and somebody who endured that much suffering and trauma was able to actually realize that there is a stimulus and response, and most people go from 0 to 100. And that's a very broad statement, I understand, but most people are not reading books about emotional intelligence. Most people are just inundated with everyday life and the craziness of life, and their own conditionings and their own responses and their own projections of others and their own world, that they're too busy to refocus and to understand that there is a gap between when you have a thought and the response that is that goes with that thought. It's either thought reaction, I like to say, or thought response, because I think reaction and response are different. Reaction is more limbic and more like tribal. I don't know if tribal is the right word, but more just animalistic, and
it's more primitive.
Yeah. Response connotes a little bit more of like, there's a little information, it's informed, there's
sometimes
space.
Response is good. You touch a fire, you want a response to be like that. That burns, everything. That hurts.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no shouldn't be extremes, but it's like,
but like, you have, I saw that you brought in today like a bag of cookies.
Yeah, exactly.
So for somebody who's looking at what they're putting into their mouth, like nutrition wise, they need to, I shouldn't say need, it might be in their best interest to think about that cookie before they just buy it, purchase it, and pop it in their mouth. Like, think about, like, okay, what's up with this cookie? Why am I having this? Is this is this for fun?
That's
or is this for value?
Yep.
And what's my choice? Does this support my highest value? I talk about this with people all the time. Like, whatever choice you make, it's like, you can do whatever you want in your life, but ask yourself, just at least ask yourself, does this support my highest values? So if you're trying to save up money, but you're spending extravagantly, it's your money that you're spending on something else is not supporting your highest values of saving money, because you're trying to put a deposit on a house. So it's not the saying that that'll fix everything, but at least you're, like, back to mindful. At least you're mindful of your decisions.
And that's what mindfulness, that's really what it is, right? It's just, mindfulness is that space between stimulus and response. That's essentially,
I love that quote.
Yeah. The actual, I'll have to post it because it's one of my favorite quotes. There's actually a great book entitled Emotional Agility by Susan David, PhD, from she's a researcher at Harvard, and her book taught me a lot during this tumultuous time that I'm going into, that we're going to be talking about.
That's why I told you, don't worry about your notes.
Yeah,
because we're still at, and I started going to
exactly.
therapy.
Yeah, but see, it's all kind of up here anyway. So she introduced me to that, not personally, but we correspond once in a while. But her book introduced me. It's the quotes in the book, and it's that's the basis of her entire thing. Emotional agility is in being in that gap, and like I was saying, most people, including myself, still, but more so years ago, it's just 0 to 100. People. That's that's where I think that's the birthplace of Stories to Songs. But more to my story, with the therapist that I was going to, that was very important at the time. It was immediate relief. It
Mhm.
was, okay, you've got a lot of anxiety. This is how you temper it. This is how you bring it down this many levels.
You know what it's almost like? It's almost like, because I used to have some older cars.
Oh,
It's
cool.
almost
Older
like
cars.
your car overheated.
Yeah.
You can't just bring it to mechanic and they can start working on it. They need to let the engine cool down,
Yeah.
and then they could look at it and say, okay, this is where it needs help. This is where it needs fixed. So that almost sounds like for your therapy, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Your brain was overheated. So
Yeah.
let's cool it down. And now let's address the actual issues.
Yeah.
I think.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's what it was. It was immediate. I needed that at the time. It was not sorry. It was it was a very specific form of therapy that just was necessary. But what prompted that really to even go to therapy is I went online when I started having these panic attacks and saw this course on how to deal with panic attacks, and you had to do a lot of writing. You had to do free writing. There's a doctor from UT Austin, Dr. Pennebaker, who created this. He did this study on thousands of people. They did on different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, ethnicities, everything. It's 3 days, 25 minutes a day. 3 days for 25 minutes. You sit down and you just write anything that comes to mind. Absolutely. You don't filter.
There's not even a prompt. It's just like, just sit down in front of paper and just whatever comes out.
Whatever. Yeah. It's kind of like art therapy in a way where, subconsciously you're kind of getting into the mind. The therapist is getting into the mind, the underground inner workings of the person's subconscious a little bit. And art kind of depicts that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole other thing about Stories to Songs, but I'm talking more about visual art. But similarly, because everything's connected, right? Because the brain is one thing and we are all connected via that consciousness, but we all, depict the way we're feeling or showcase the way we're feeling or bring into fruition how we're feeling in different ways. And so art therapy is one way, music and writing. So this drew out so many thoughts and conditionings for my subconscious mind, writing for 3 days for 25 minutes. And I have the paper still at home somewhere, papers and papers and papers, and just like a flood of consciousness. And the studies show that it is incredibly effective for people who especially suffer from suicidal ideation and who suffer from extreme anxiety. It lowers those levels exponentially if you take to pen and paper and you just like free write. Because like you said before, people bottle things up, not to.
It's scary to talk about your problems. I get it. And I have my own issues from my past as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like everybody else, life sucks at times, meaning like life is hard and you have to go through challenges and overcome them. That's like important. If you don't do that, again, so I like a blanket statement here, because whoever ends up hearing this, or like, we're going to end up talking about anxiety, depression. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a whole other heavy topics that we talk about.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I say things, it's almost like a disclaimer for this. I'm talking about those people who can do something with their lives. There's always going to be exceptions where some people definitely need just medical intervention, and it's just, they got dealt a bad deck, man. And like, I feel bad for those people, like no matter what they do. Like, I have a friend, I don't know how he's going to get out of his funk that he's in.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
He's not somebody who I'm going to say like, hey dude, why don't you start making your bed in the morning and cleaning up your room? Like, he needs so much more than that.
Yeah.
But I think that it's important for anybody's life to go through these challenges and hit them face on if you're up for it.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. Yeah. It takes the person.
So like you were that person, like you kind of hit it head on. So like even in those journals, when you start going to therapy, so because I wanted to know about some of the root issues with you. Like, did anything come up? Do you know where this anxiety came from?
At the time I still didn't know. I just knew everything I was feeling. I was able to identify that it was anxiety, and that I started having these feelings.
Do you know like what situations would make you anxious? Like, you know,
Um,
some people it's crowded spaces, it's public speaking, it's just walking out the door. Do you know
yeah.
what yours was?
Oh my. Um, this goes into my song Silence, and I we can get to that, but it definitely it goes into the feeling of not feeling accomplished, and not living up to certain things that I wanted to live up to.
How old are you?
And I'm almost 30. Well, I just turned 29.
So that's what I
I
mean.
know,
So like you were at these times you're having
but
thoughts about not accomplishing anything. You were
yeah,
25.
but the thing is, when you grow up in a situation, not my family, like, because my family has always been supportive and has always, never been pushy about my life and my lifestyle and my trajectory. But when you're around a community who wears its pride and who measures its worth, both individually and wholly, based on awards, accomplishments, degrees, now I'm talking about, I don't like to always say classical music but I don't know any. Trying to figure out how to explain this community. I was first and foremost trained in music as a classical organist.
When you say this community, you're talking about
It's hard to say the organ community.
okay.
Because who knows that? It's like the bassoon community. It's really not. But it's funny because these little. Oh, sorry. I don't know if this is going to ruin the mic.
No, you're fine.
In anything, any industry, there's micro communities, but specifically in classical music, you've got these communities of instrumentalists that they stick together like birds of a feather. It's like it's the reed players geek out about making reeds. The organists, are sort of alone, but the people respect them because they play with all their appendages.
Well, you should see our world when people
That's
talk
actually
about cameras, and it's like
yeah.
it's like,
There's like little idiosyncrasy. It's just like there's, without getting into it too much, I'll just say that aside from it, I think it's better to deviate from that, what I was just saying about, like, all these instrumentalists, and talk more about institution. It's the church, the institute. And I have Invisaligns. I'll be very honest. I can't say church really clear, but church
sounded fun.
The institution mindset is one that, in my view, it could be good, but it is restricting in many ways, and it could be a place for growth for some people, but I think also a lot of people don't realize their full potential because they feel over time subservient to the status quo, if you will, of that respective organization or institution.
And I don't know if we're going to get into this, but this is why I'm not. So one of my personal beliefs is not to be a huge fan of, I know it's like a hot item if people don't know this, but just group identities.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of group identities because, right, if you don't fit a certain mold, whatever it is,
right,
it doesn't matter. It could be a church.
Right.
Even if it's an activist cause, even if it's there's certain groups that as a business, people want us to be a part of. And I say no a lot of the times because I don't want to be in a group.
Association.
I value the individuality of anybody, and I wouldn't want to work with somebody or not work with somebody or like somebody or not like somebody just
you
because they're in a group and I'm not.
Because the other thing, the problem with this is that once you submit yourself, it's a strong word to use, but once you submit yourself to that, you're sort of, you can get stuck there, you, and it's hard to dig yourself out, because then now you've spent all these years, and this refers to my, I'm talking about my life. You spent all these years building this perception around yourself and building.
So with yours, how specific can you be? Like what was actually going on?
it's weird because it was not really traumatic. It's just you build this life
Mhm.
around these expectations that are not your expectations, your own expectations. They're not born out of your own quote unquote, why. They're not born out of your own um, purpose, the definition of, you and what you want to bring to the table. They can facilitate these things and help you, but I found that I was, learning music that I didn't really care for just because it's a great way to get hired to play concerts. And it's just, you just do it because it's standard.
Mhm.
That's a big thing. There's a big term in music, standard repertoire. So then I would learn these pieces and like find that I loved the music before learning it. And then halfway through learning it, I would just like get so tired of it. And I was like, is this really what it's about? That's when I started writing my own music, which then evolved into writing songs. But I just didn't feel, I felt like just a truly, and not there's anything wrong with cover music because there's some really great cover artists.
No, you're
out
talking
there.
about what for you.
Yeah, but
what
for
was the
me,
best and
it
what
didn't
was
work.
not the best.
I felt like I felt like a cover artist. I knew deep down that there was something more original and something that needed to come out that was not being tended to in the environment that I was, around. And, with that you can start to feel some animosity, some resentment without even knowing why. And of course, around an academic environment, when they're telling you that you have to get all these things right and, you have to be tested on this, it just felt like music was so confined and contrived and I couldn't tap into that natural part of me. And I felt like that part of me was so antithetical to what I was around for those so many years.
That's why art's so important.
Yeah.
Because I mean, just art for boundary breaking in general. But
Yep.
man, does that suck when you're in an art field and then you
And
feel confined?
Well, I know so many musicians who feel that way, and so many who have come out of that with me together. And I've watched their evolution, and some of them are my closest best friends, and we're collaborating now. And you come out of this, and it's not really anybody's fault. I mean, like your teachers don't want to harm you, but usually, not usually, but in many cases, lots of these teachers living vicariously through their students.
Sure.
And they want to watch their students excel, sure, for good reasons, but also for reasons that are selfish. And to me, that's just completely unhealthy. I don't believe in the student teacher thing for music. I believe in somebody more as a coach, somebody who can help bring out, that inner voice that I felt was not coming out in that environment. And there's actually, on this topic about expression, and there is this American songwriter, lyricist, Yip Harburg, who wrote the lyrics for Somewhere Over the Rainbow, actually Wizard of Oz, and all these socially hot topics plays in the 20s and 30s. And he treated the theater as a sort of a playground or as a testing ground for social justice. And it was his use of lyricism and poetry and the theater that enabled him to tap into that part of him and to help with social issues and to actually be a voice. Rather, why art has always been like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the greatest composers wrote some of their best music in concentration camps, and it's freedom. So what I felt when we were studying about these composers who wrote so freely and in concentration camps, it's such a paradox. I mean, it's like writing expressively and freely and about what you're feeling inside in a concentration camp.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how opposite is that?
A lot of times the best things come from pain and hurt, though.
But I mean,
in the field of art,
yeah,
like the expression.
You're caged, but this freedom is coming out. You know what I mean? It just felt so opposite, like being in like studying that. I just never felt. I felt like, like Pink Floyd, The Wall. That whole idea of it's just manufactured. It felt too manufactured.
Mm-hmm.
So, you asked about the anxiety. It's an approval thing. It's when
you would actually feel it like when you were playing music that you didn't love.
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And a lot of people misunderstand that as, just performance anxiety, or which it is, but it comes from somewhere.
Well, I
Sometimes.
always tell people this. Just
Yeah,
let me
yeah.
get this point in here real quick. That
Sure.
there's I'm pretty sure it's scientific terms, but there's distress and eustress. Have me and you talked about this
Yeah,
before, right?
distress and
So
eustress. Yeah.
there's eustress is actually good for you. Distress is bad for you. So
Right.
the word dis-ease, by the way, it's a
Dis-ease. Yeah.
dis-ease. They're two different words put together. It's
Uneasy.
not a
Yeah.
disease. You
Right.
don't. So most people don't have something, which I
Right.
know will. If enough people listen to this, it will get me in trouble. Like you don't have something. Your
Right.
body is in a state of dis-ease.
Right.
So if we can get your body back into an ease with certain to every there's gonna be different tools for everybody. All right, so back to eustress and distress. So like I do stand up comedy once in a while.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah.
It's not a
Oh yeah.
real anxiety. I don't need to take a pill for it.
Mhm.
That is eustress. That is performance anxiety, which is me doing something that is outside of my comfort zone. And when I'm done with it, just like we're done with this, just like you did a Facebook Live earlier that you're kind of anxious to do, when you hit end and when you're done and you completed that task, you actually feel better.
Ah, yeah.
Distress is when you have stress about something that you feel like a lot of times it comes from something you can't change. One of our clients, former clients, he's like this worldwide speaker now. This guy, Dr. Nima, used to talk about that stress exists between the difference of your fantasy and your reality.
Mhm.
So a lot of times people can't change their fantasy or their reality, but the stress exists in between. So if you can create a new perception on that, then you can actually eliminate that gap. Just like you were talking about stimulus and response. Like
Yeah.
there's this gap. Like there's so many things that we feel or hear or think, and they may not always be real. They're just made this gap that our brain created. And if we can figure out a way to remove that gap, whether it's actually by changing something or just changing the way you look at it, you can really change your life and how much stress goes on and just everything around it. But I just wanted to, because you're just talking about performance anxiety.
Yeah.
So anxiety is a word, but it's some anxiety is good, some
Yeah.
anxiety is bad.
Yeah. Actually, what you just said reminded me of the Wayne Dyer quote:
Mhm.
"Energy goes where attention flows."
Mm.
So he was big on that. We are the thoughts, we think, or not. We are the thoughts we think. It's we become what we think about. Yeah, we become what we think about, because the more you tell your story in your head and loop that story, the more you're going to take action based on those thoughts. And people
You're
think,
in like a hypnotic
yeah,
state,
exactly.
honestly. Like back. You mentioned something before about being conditioned.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not like you're conditioned to do something or believe something,
Yeah.
whether you realize it or not. Like you have these habits that have slowly been ingrained into your life, and now they're just common.
Yeah.
Like when I wake up in the morning, I need coffee.
Right.
I don't really need coffee.
Right.
I'm conditioned. It's a part of I've been doing it every day for like the last 15 years.
And the caffeine doesn't help with programming into your mind.
There's time when I travel the
yeah.
world and I go to these other countries and there's not coffee like
Right.
readily available 15 minutes after I wake up, I'm fine.
Yeah, there you go. It just takes
It's a mental state. It's kind of like BS, but
But so even saying that, even people who say that they're addicted because of the caffeine, they could overcome that, which they can. People do overcome addictions like nicotine, caffeine.
So much of the addiction is in your head. I know
Yeah.
that there's chemical addictions for sure. Like heroin and cigarettes are like real addictions.
But you can break away from them.
From them, especially when it comes to nicotine. Like if you were just to stop having it, like one of those addictions, like an alcohol addiction is really real, because a lot of times for some alcoholics, they can't go cold turkey. It'll actually kill them.
Yeah.
So they have to wean off. Those are like real things.
Yeah.
But if you're addicted to Amazon, I'm telling you, you're lying to yourself a little bit. You're not addicted.
Well, we also live in this defeatist.
It's that stimulus response.
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
It's back to that.
We kind of enable it. It's like a halfway thing. I think this is, as we get more into stories to songs, I want to highlight this, but we can sympathize and be there and empathize as much as we can, and listen to a person as we should. And that's a huge thing about regarding what I'm going to talk about. But we almost live in this like in between where we enable like an Amazon addiction or this addiction, that we sort of sit there with somebody for too long. I think in my experience, like watching and observing, like we're not objective enough, I don't think, with people, and we don't just let them talk about their experience. we either chime in too quickly with our own bias, or we just enable it.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, unsolicited advice is really annoying, and we don't. And if the person is not
There's
wanting
plenty
it,
of that out
yeah,
there.
exactly. We don't. But if somebody's wanting something from us, I think like some help, the best thing we can do was like an online addiction or whatever addiction. And now this could be very real experiences for people, because of the world we live in now, hyper connected and everything, social media addiction, is to just be there with them, and to let them explain or not what, or just let them, so we reprimand people for being on their phones, and that doesn't help, because it triggers, it sends a message to the person that, oh, okay, I guess I'm just crazy, or I guess it undermines the person.
Mhm.
So it's just always better to be present with somebody. I found, like, even with addictions, like more severe addictions, like heroin addiction. I had a cousin who died from a heroin addiction, and I didn't know that she was, I didn't know she was doing heroin. I just knew that she was in a lot of mental pain and using a lot of medication to get through that pain, prescribed medication.
Self-medicating,
Yeah,
for sure.
I didn't know, and it was ignorance on my part at the time. I just didn't realize that the two meshed together. That, I mean, duh, but those medications they prescribed can lead to, until I read the statistics. But I would always be, I'd talk with her about, what she was feeling, and I just let her expand on it, and or not. Had I known more, I guess I'd have taken more action. You never know. You never know. But
Yeah, don't play that game.
No, you
I
can't.
have to. We do, like I think I was
Yeah.
telling you last time we met. Like I have this thing I do with my girlfriend's kids when they have a thought
Yeah.
that does not help them.
Yeah.
We just say cancel.
Yeah, cancel. But it doesn't bother. I mean,
because I've played
yeah.
that game in the past with stuff too.
And what is that again? That you just tell you if you
Just tell your thoughts, cancel.
So it's the same thing as the stimulus response
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, just catch it.
The cancel is the pause.
You could be by yourself and
Yeah.
you could be having this thought, like, you could be going to a job interview and be like, oh, I'm not qualified enough, and I'm not. No, fuck
Cancel.
that. Cancel.
These are the defeatist kind of false realities that we're taught.
You're a rocket going to the moon.
Right.
You're going to land on the moon, but that journey that you thought that you were going to be on, the trajectory might change a little bit during its course. So just catch yourself. I have this group, and I'm not talking about this to promote anything, but I have this group and it's called Shift Happens. But the reason why we called it is because right, obviously a play on words, but the real reason why we call it that is because a lot of the times in people's life, something, whether it's a small thing or a big thing, so whether it's traumatic or not, something happens and then we drift. And the idea is that knowing that that's going to happen, that there's going to be obstacles in your life and challenges, and then you're going to be a negative Nancy sometimes.
Of course, yeah.
It's not a knock on women. It could be a negative Nate. Okay,
negative Nate.
But if you keep drifting, you'll look back in your life in 10 years and say, "Oh man, what did I just do? And was that worth it?" A lot of
people drift.
So the whole thing, and I try to do, and I think it's why you're doing Stories to Songs, is to help the next person not drift as far as maybe we felt like we have in the past. I'm talking about me and you specifically, and loved ones. Because sometimes you can see it with somebody that you really love, and you just see them starting to drift, and you want to catch them and help them and do something. Sometimes you can't, and you have to be okay with that too. So removing expectations is a huge thing when you're going in to help somebody.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part. Is you
may not have the right answer for somebody.
That's the thing. That's exactly right. That was a big learning experience for me. I used to want to put my 2 cents into people's lives when I was younger, close, family members. But I actually mentioned this to a friend last night. It's like I've stopped giving unsolicited advice or even advice. It's only when somebody really,
even though he just did when he said that.
What's that? Who?
Your friend.
Oh no!
I'm gonna stop giving unsolicited advice. Like that was his advice.
Oh,
no, it's fine. I'm just teasing.
Yeah, right. Give unsolicited advice. But yeah, so my whole issue, or the thing I was facing, was living up to this perception, this world of, so when I was 13, I would go to St. Patrick's Cathedral all the time and listen to the organist. And was so like I wanted to meet him so bad, and I was set on meeting him, and I did. And then he became my first teacher, my first organ teacher.
Cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd have lessons with him on the phone when I was 14 from like 12 to 3 in the morning. And I got through, the Toccata in D minor by Bach, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, the Halloween piece that people...
You might as well be talking.
Oh, you don't
another
know?
language.
You know that one. You know it. Yeah.
I probably know what it sounds like, but would you say Toccata Bach?
Toccata.
What did you say?
Sounds like frittata. That's what I think when I say
Toccata.
Hakuna Matata. Yeah, yeah. I said the word portamento yesterday to somebody. It's it's a musical term, and I was in my mind. I was like, this must sound like portobello to them.
A little bit, yeah.
But it's like,
so what's a toccata? Is what?
Oh, it's just a musical work. It's a flashy, sort of quick happening piece of music, a keyboard piece. It literally means to touch.
Gotcha.
So
I like that word.
Toccata.
Yeah.
Toccata. It's
just fun to say.
Yeah, toccata. Yeah. But I learned some basic repertoire with him and standard stuff. And he was really a great inspiration. But from a very young age, I was exposed to the New York City music scene and the cathedral and, all this great stuff.
What are the acoustics like in St. Patrick's Cathedral?
Have you been?
I don't know. I've been there before, but I can't say that I've heard like the organ playing.
Oh,
that I don't remember. I mean, like visiting hours when it's quiet.
It's an experience. I'm playing there in February. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'll let you know more about
Just don't tell me February 16th.
No.
Okay.
I think 10th.
Then maybe I'll be there.
February 10th. But
how do you get that? How do you get to do that?
So this sounds so pretentious. My friends, all 3 of them are the musicians there. So yeah.
Wow. But, very nice.
I've known them for a while. I mean, since I've been going there.
That didn't sound pretentious.
No, I know, but some people are my friends at St. Patrick's Cathedral.
No, just don't say it again.
Yeah, exactly. I was told that saying something like that is bougie.
But I asked you.
No, I know, but I'm saying like I learned. Yes.
If you were like, hey, I'm playing at the cathedral on February 10th, my friends got me that gig because they're the musicians there.
But
you would have sounded
I
like.
Didn't understand. I didn't realize that was. Apparently, that's bougie. I'm so
this is a good thing to talk about, actually, and I don't know what we were just on, but like you're going to be judged no matter what you say or do.
But it's this mindset. It's ingrained in your. I wasn't really. My musical life growing up wasn't like this. Funny enough, but my social life was the approval thing. I had like no friends growing up, and. And growing, I'm almost 30. So it's like, you have a different perspective. There's lots of people who didn't have friends growing up, but you don't ever want to minimize your situation, but still you become, hopefully mature into this understanding that, lots of people were bullied, and lots of people struggled. And, there's a community, a world community really of people who experienced the same thing. And that helps a lot. But so socially, there was a lot of rejection. I was going to get to that a little later, but I'll go to it now because we're there. I mean, I started out in Montessori school, grades 1 through 3, very culturally diverse. That's what I knew.
I love Montessori school. I teach in some Montessori schools. I love their style and the way they do things. It's a little different, but I think it's.
Well, did you study? Was that your school?
No, I went to Mayapack High School.
Yeah. Oh, well,
and I went through all like Mayapack schools, but I never went to Montessori. But
Montessori is great. The only thing is, I think having my formative years, having been in Montessori school, I think there are some gaps. So I know, having been through it, my mother, kind of recognized those gaps as she became a teacher, a special education teacher, actually, and was able to pick up on some things, because I went from Montessori to Catholic school, completely. Now Montessori was created by, I think, a nun or a Catholic. Is a Catholic?
Yeah, I would be guessing if I said
not
I knew the history.
That matter. I mean, it's apples and oranges, but
still, any school to a Catholic school is going to be different than any school.
Yeah. Oh, and it was, and so I had some friendships in Montessori. I was still really young, and my friendships were limited to school time, and you know what I mean. going into Catholic school was extremely different. Downsized by, forget it. Academically, incredibly different. Very accelerated, and that was very difficult. And the kids had already been friends. This is a common theme in my life, by the way. What I'm going to say right now, the kids had already been friends for a long time, and I just kind of went in there. Fourth grade. Then a lot of teasing happened. There's a lot of teasing, a lot of, picking on and
Picking on you specifically.
Yeah.
Because you were the new kid?
Probably, but there were a lot of established friendships in the class. There was only one class to a grade. And I had the support. It was always, I had the support of the teachers. They loved me. I loved them because it's the parochial school, tied to the parish I grew up in. And my grandmother's name and my mom's family had a very big name there, so there was that kind of respect, if you want to call it that, but so the teachers really liked me. I really liked them. I struggled academically, but it was really we were always eye to eye, even me being so little, I was a little ahead of my age mentally, always. So I think they picked up on that, and I was really sensitive, very sensitive kid. Made me vulnerable and open to, being teased, picked on. That happened throughout from like, I'd say 4th through 7th grade.
How do you think you handled being bullied?
Oh,
like, what do you think your normal back to response? What do you think your normal response was? Did you try to ignore it? Did you fight back?
I didn't fight back. I often felt like defeated and afraid to go to school. I'm lucky they never physically, they didn't have the opportunity to physically, do anything, because it was too small school and we were always in class, like with the teachers.
And do you have older brothers or sisters?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
They didn't pick on you?
I did get picked on by my brother.
I'm only saying, I had like older brothers and sisters, and they definitely like helped me for those social situations.
Yeah.
My last name's Cobelli. I've been called Smelly Cobelli before, and I didn't even smell.
Yeah.
Like that was a nickname for like a couple of months, but I knew how to like handle that.
It's just because it rhymes and they think it's funny. They think it's the rhyme. They think the rhyme is funny, but they don't know that
some of that is like low self-esteem and insecurity, but some of it is just kids being kids, honestly. Like, when I go into schools now, and I do feel for you at this idea of getting bullied. I'm not minimizing it at all, but the idea that it's we're going to eliminate it. It's never going to happen.
That's a scary notion, because it's like saying we're not going to deal with it. You can't eliminate human behavior.
That's right.
So it's like, okay, and this is another story. So we're going to get to all this. All these things are going to go to story. We're going to connect the dots. You can't eliminate that, and we're fooling ourselves to think you can eliminate any of these things that are derivative of human behavior.
I don't believe that we can necessarily make life easier, but I think that you can make yourself stronger so that you're more well equipped to handle life.
That's precisely it. More aware of the stimulus response thing, more in tune with a community who recognizes you for who you are and who wants to hear you and who wants to just listen and not respond. This is all the foundation of what I'm going for. And I think music tells the story really well, and it's sort of like an added bonus, to have people love surrounding themselves by music when they're feeling down and out, or when they're any emotion. But giving people a message of hope sounds a little too fuzzy to me and a little too, out there.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Giving people a message of, I don't even know what I would call it now, but I think awareness, letting people know that you're aware of their struggle, that you're aware of their story, that you're aware of their existence, that you want to listen to them, that you desire, because underneath all of us, every single person, is a desire to be understood, desire to be heard. And it doesn't matter where you come from. You could be the toughest guy in town. You're going to you're going to be doing certain weird things. They call it masculine fragility, which is, I think, is a real thing. And also there could be an equivalent for women in any walk of life, whatever status you are. But I think people do the things they do because they're trying to compensate or trying to cover something else up. So when you talk to somebody who is very clearly putting up a facade, a front, an edifice of strength or something else, you're talking to somebody who's got something else going on. And you don't want to project and be like, hey, dude, you're just messed up inside, aren't you? Pulling all these
That's not going to stop the bully from
you're just like, oh, at the heart of it, oh, really, you're just like really fragile inside. No, it's like, okay, this is where you are. You got to look past the face, I think, and just listen to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that when I was being bullied. I had that from the teachers, but I never had, and I talked to my therapist now about this, and he's a psychotherapist. So it's different from the breathe in, breathe out. He's like, no, we're going in underneath the water and looking at that iceberg. So this is a different type of therapy I'm in now, but you get rid of the associations that you have about a person, or you get rid of your perception of them a little bit and your judgment of them. It takes a lot of doing away with your pride. It takes a lot of just like setting yourself aside and not getting, we use the word triggered. But if somebody bothers you, it makes you feel small inside because they're macho or something. And I feel threatened by machismo, which I don't anymore, but I did, especially football, because that was the biggest sport talked about when I was getting bullied. I had this like hate for football.
I played football until I was 13 and I hated it.
So you hated it because just for other reasons?
Just because we practice for like 6 days and then you play once.
Right.
I'm not into that.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you feel like that as a musician.
Yeah. Practice.
But I play baseball. I like
amount of times you play. Yeah.
I like real games. Less practice, more games.
Head games, mind games? No, I'm just kidding.
I used to play a lot of mind games, but I'm done. I'm not bored anymore.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff comes from boredom too, and like not fulfilling your purpose.
That is like,
and that could be whatever it is. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to go out and change the world.
It's epic.
Because the world might just be one person for you. What
you just said right there is like what a lot of people do not want to hear. And what a lot of people are resistant. A lot of the problems that, and I'm not diminishing or dismissing, neurological disorders, behavioral issues, personality issues. But frankly, so much of that is exacerbated by boredom and by not delving into the hardest question I think humanity has to ever face is, why am I here? Mm-hmm. This existential thing where it's like we're looking outside and we're looking at having a view of ourselves in a way that is the most profound of ways that nobody else can do for us. And then when you're looking down and looking at that person and saying, what's that about? Then the answers start to come, but people are afraid of doing that.
It's scary to change. Yeah. Like even you were talking about the therapist. Like I went to therapy years ago. I had an ex-girlfriend at the time and we were trying to like fix our relationship. By the end of it, the therapist was like, yeah, you guys shouldn't be together. But
you can tell, yeah.
Therapy, just even the idea of therapy can be scary for people because you're going in there to say, hey, there might be something wrong with me. And you're actually saying it out loud to somebody else.
Yeah.
But you're also saying, I want help and I'm looking to change.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Whether you're looking for a mental change, a spiritual change, a physical change, they're all scary because there's this concept that your brain, Will Smith has this video, if anybody can find it online.
I think I've seen.
And he's about, I don't know if he's about to jump out of a plane, but he's talking about skydiving. Oh my God. He says, like, obviously skydiving is scary. And like your brain starts telling you all the reasons why you should not do this. What if the parachute doesn't open? I'm so high, not in a chemical sense, in an altitude sense. And, all these like worst case scenarios. So he was saying that your brain basically loves to quantify all the things that can go wrong and all the things that are in its face. Your brain cannot quantify what it will gain by doing something scary or doing something out of your comfort zone. And he was saying that that's why it's important to do it. That was like his own version of do the things that you're afraid to do. Because you don't, like, once you pull the string and you're in that parachute and you're kind of floating down, you're like, oh, this was so awesome. What was I so worried about? And you don't have those thoughts.
Yeah, the idea that
so your brain can quantify
what
it will lose. It cannot quantify what it will gain.
Yeah, because the loss is so.
And you just have to trust that. Steve Harvey has the thing about the just
scary.
jump. He has this rant on Facebook. It's another great video to watch. If you just watch that every day, it would probably change your life.
Just jump scares me though for people who are.
But you just got to go for it. So jump in obviously a proverbial sense, but just like go for it. You know, like me with stand-up comedy, it's like just make a jump. I don't know if this is gonna be funny. I don't know if it's gonna work, but like just do it. And even if people think I suck, at least I went up there and said I did it. And when I get up stage, I was like, whew.
Well, it's like songwriting. It's like you get like last night I started writing lyrics, which I usually start with a melody, but last night the lyrics came to me and I had to take myself away from this. I kept on hearing rhythm because the words have rhythm, and melodies started to pop in, and I was not like pushing them away, but it was like, just get out of the way for a second. I just want to get the lyrics out. I'm feeling something.
So interesting.
Yeah, I'm feeling something here, and it turned out to be a beautiful piece of poetry. Well, I mean, that's a lot to say, but to me in that moment it was beautiful because I felt it. I felt what I wanted to say in that moment came out. And
I feel like when you say beauty, you actually mean like there's you found some truth.
Exactly. Beauty is to truth. Yeah. And there was a lot of truth in that moment. I had an experience yesterday, though small, and it prompted this. And I just sat there with, you know, me as a channel or channeling these feelings, and then I put them into words, and then you have to kind of find out how they can work together poetically and not too in a box, but for the first time in a while, I wrote the lyrics, and it will be a song eventually. But what was the point? The point was that sometimes you just have to get that stuff out of your head, and go for it, and not, because the more you keep it in, it's you stifle yourself and you never get to the next step.
And you might not be helping somebody else. Like anything that you're going to talk about with stories to songs, or even like what ends up happening, like more conversation in this, like there's somebody, and you never know who it's going to be, man. Like it was probably last year I was doing Facebook lives. Yeah. God, it felt like I was doing them every day. And the people I thought I was like trying to help with encouragement or inspiration didn't get anything out of it. And the people who like would never even think of, or who were quiet, they weren't even liking the video, but maybe 6 months later I'd get these messages and be like, dude, I haven't seen like a video in a while. Can you please do one? Like, it was really helpful.
I've had that too.
So there's always somebody who, no matter what it is, and no matter how crazy you think that thought is, or how small that problem is, somebody else is also having that same thing, and they might be in a place where they're not able to talk about it, at least yet. And just by you sharing that was, even in that way, that person is able to be like, it's not just me.
Yeah, that's actually a big thing that I've experienced with my own Facebook Live,
If you're thinking a thought, there's somebody else, and there's 7 billion people on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
There's somebody else who's having that thought.
Absolutely.
Too. At least
I've gotten messages too, and some scary ones, not like life threatening to me, but like to themselves.
Yeah.
And
and you even start to question yourself. You're like, am I equipped to have this conversation?
Now that's a very pivotal point in this whole stories to songs thing. I know we're jumping around a lot, but it made me think, is like, a lot of these messages came to me at a time when I was super broken and down, and it was hard because I do absorb energy, like we all do. We all do. But I've practiced myself into a state of not absorbing as much as I used to, which is good. But there's also a danger to that, because you don't want to become apathetic. And I don't think if you're generally a compassionate person, I think it's hard for you to turn apathetic, but it could happen. And like anything, you could train your mind. But I started to think, holy crap, like, how am I going to be, what do I do here? And then I was all stripped down to just like, listen to the person and encourage them to seek some help. And and maybe find resources for them. One of the things that my job description when I was, like I said before, doing a little bit of work at the mental health clinic was to take calls and find resources for people who were in need, of those resources. So, I did that a little bit for these people who would send messages. But then I started saying, this isn't about an arrival point. This isn't about creating a sterile, clinical, and I hate to put those things into a negative category, but for the purpose of art and the purpose of rawness and humanity, you can't put that in a box. So
Right.
I'm not a trained psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, health practitioner, whatever you want to say. I'm not, but I know the human condition well, and I know I was raised in such a way where I was given this great backbone of compassion. I know that for sure. And I always have known I needed to use that to some extent. I don't know. I didn't know how. And then,
And that's the only lane you have to live in. Like, just
Yeah.
understand that I don't have all of the tools, but I am a tool, and
that's exactly right.
my art form will help somebody get to a place to get help.
Yeah.
It doesn't even necessarily mean, and that's just as important as somebody who helps that person.
That's exactly right. So, but it made me think, it's like, okay, the Stories to Songs thing has been like a 3-year thing in the making, and I'm wanting it to be this platform for people to express themselves, but it kind of became, in my mind, just this arrival point of clarity and healing, and just maybe I didn't intentionally think of it that way, but that's what it was becoming, not even manifesting into, but in my mind, like my mind was geared towards like making it into this like happy place. And honestly, it dawned upon me during my own difficult time just months ago. Months ago ending, actually, the difficult time, thank God. But it had been going on for about a year or so, or less. But it was that I'm not gonna ever be 1,000%, 100% okay. Nobody ever is going to arrive. I'm gonna have another moment. And the rawness of
That would suck too, if you think about it. If you actually arrived, so you're 29. Let's say you arrived, so to speak, at 29. What would you do the rest of your life?
I'm like, you can't draw upon yourself. Yeah,
There's a great story. So one of these pastors I listen to, he's controversial, but Joel Osteen. So I listen to him. I take him for what he's worth. I don't go for him for as like Bible study.
Right.
I am a Christian, but I'm not. I still don't consider myself religious.
Right.
Meaning, like, there's no organization. Again, back to groups. Like, there's no group that I've gone to as a church, any institute, and been like,
more people feel that way a lot now these days. Yeah.
But so he talks about, and I don't know if this is a true story, but he talks about when NASA was like testing out stuff in outer space, and they put like different animals on ships and things like that. So they
Noah's
put
Ark? No, I'm just kidding.
but I guess they put bumblebees in the spaceship. Now, the bumblebee on Earth, aerodynamically, as far as any scientist studies, it just makes no sense that it can fly. It's this giant body, these little wings that just zip around, kind of like a hummingbird. Like, it just doesn't make sense. You're like, what? So a bumblebee, so it's like a struggle for a bumblebee to fly every day.
Wow.
It's just they're fighting against nature. They're fighting against gravity. So every day it's like they just struggle to fly. So they put them on a spaceship where there's no gravity. They don't have to struggle to fly. They said within 3 days they died because they didn't have that struggle.
Yeah.
So whether that story is true or not,
it's a nice
it's
picture.
So interesting to think about.
Concept. Yeah. Even I don't know yet, but that I could see how that ties into, I mean, die meaning like lack of growth. You don't thrive without a little bit of that.
Life was too easy.
Yeah.
So
I like to call it contrast.
Yeah.
Because struggle, I mean, I'm not like negating or going against your use of struggle, because I use the word too, but I'm saying, like, I don't believe that you have to. I think we put more on ourselves than we need to. I think things should generally be, and people are going to think this is crazy, I think things should generally be easy. If they're not easy, then if there's just, if put it this way, not that things should just be easy. I don't mean it like that, like, in a villa in the, southern Italy, where you're just like sipping sangria or whatever.
You get bored.
Yeah. But what I'm talking about is flow. I'm talking about is
Right.
focus. I'm talking about channeled energy, efficiency. If one is putting too much effort, and I've experienced this myself, like if you're just putting too much effort, then you ever hear this thing about willpower? Like it's like being like a battery throughout the day. You only have so much, and when your brain is done, it's done. Like it's not going to take in any more information. Period. Now, I don't know how completely accurate that is, but it seems to be a hot topic in like neuroscience and study of productivity. I can tell you for myself that when I'm done, I'm freaking done. Like I can only go so far, and I only want to expend my energy now on things that really need it. And if that means 15 minutes of, practicing something or 2 hours of planning for work or whatever, then I'm going to see how I feel after that. And if I don't feel like doing anything else, I'm not going to push this idea of you have to push. I don't agree with. And I found myself pushing a lot.
It's always balance.
Yeah. I think people who push lose themselves, and maybe some of them do get ahead, and for whatever that's worth for them. And maybe some of them excel and beat the odds, but at the end of the game, they have compromised personal relationships,
Absolutely,
a relationship with themselves, their own mental health, a relationship with the future. Even though that's a thing that people say, don't think about the future. You don't want to live in the future, but there is a future, hopefully, and you want to. I feel like keep yourself. You want to keep yourself in a position where you're not going to push through something and beat all the odds and be this amazing person just to arrive somewhere in the moment, and then what? And I think it's so unhealthy, and I found myself like kind of being like this with Stories to Songs, like, oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be this, it's got to be. But my big revelation was I was driving a few weeks ago, and I drive all the time, but a few weeks ago when I was driving, I thought to myself, this whole project, this whole social project and songwriting project is really about the rawness of humanity and telling people stories and giving people an opportunity to meet with other people who are just as open, and to like sort of depressurize and to ease some of the tension, not to solve problems. My focus shifted from solving problems to just ease. Again, going back to efficiency, ease, just to give people that human, that chance to have the human experience, interaction experience.
Yeah. Stay humble.
Yeah.
Don't think that you're going to be the one that does it.
There's a lot of people who are resistant to opening up, and like myself. Okay, so going back to my own story.
So it's curious about you. So I'm even trying to, because I've been talking to you about this for a while, almost a year. And I'm feel like I'm even learning more about your motivation to really do this. But like you even said, like you don't really have anything traumatic, but the stories that you have begun to work on as far as songs have been. So why, like we talked about in the beginning of this, like, like a lot of drug therapists might have had drug use in their past. Well, I'm a weight loss coach. Yeah, I had weight loss. So
you've seen,
So I'm wondering for you, like, why Stories to Song is attached to traumatic experiences.
Well, honestly, here's the other thing. There's a lot of shame around expressing your trauma if it's not drug related, like physically related, like, oh,
like you're not worthy enough to have
a trauma. Like the thing, like there's a lot of shame, and that shame is the best poison, or the best, it's the best way to make people who, not to make people, but to create this false perception. Shame is invisible. It doesn't have I'm being poetic now. It doesn't have a smell. It's like carbon monoxide, right?
Mm-hmm.
While it's very real and people experience it all the time inwardly, we can also create this perception that, hey, don't complain. Look what I've been through. Why are you complaining? This, and they will give you their list of things that happened to them. And then all of a sudden you're supposed to be the hero. You're supposed to keep everything on your shoulders. You're supposed to, man up and, stop complaining, because your trauma is not, doesn't hold a candle to my trauma. There's a comparing game. It's
Right.
it's
And
freaking idiotic.
I'm even
be honest
victim
with
of
you.
that. So when I talk about
Yeah.
when I went to therapy, the therapist actually, something came up and she actually had to say to me, she goes, that experience in your life was traumatic, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, it wasn't. I was like, it sucked, but it
we
wasn't that big
associate
of a deal.
trauma with only those extreme things.
Well, she looked at it this way. She said, this happened 3 years ago and you still think about it every day.
And it's
so it must have been something.
Yeah. Did you say like, I don't really give a, about that anymore. It doesn't really bother me. Or did you, because people who say that they don't care about something over and over again, often they do a lot. And it's the center of their attention. If you're
I heard somebody say recently, because somebody was like, I don't give an F anymore about anything.
They do.
And that person said, and I think it was a Facebook message, and they said, well, you care a lot about not caring about anything.
It's a different way of caring about it. It's substituting the actual giving it attention with this other thing. It's hard to explain, but it's like you're caring about not caring.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Like you said, just like you said. And
I just think you have to be conscious, like really evaluate the problem, whether it's trauma, a problem, or a situation, the scenario, and really just be honest with yourself. Like almost, I don't know if the right idea is to grade it, but like, saying in the beginning is everybody definitely goes through something. Nobody's life is easy. There's nobody who just gets through this with a free pass.
Right.
Your trauma, your hard times are going to be different than somebody else's.
They belong to you.
Those were the scenarios that your life offered. Nobody else can live it that way.
No. Nobody
else is ever going to go through things exactly the same way as you. But again, this is like, I got to reiterate this thing. It's like those things are there for a reason.
Right.
It wasn't meant to destroy you.
Right. So
it was meant to propel you.
That's how so now,
just like a villain in a movie.
Right. That you make that actually about, sometimes where is the thing you say about the villain?
Well, so without a villain, there is no hero.
Right.
So that's just important to know.
Sometimes you said,
but sometimes the villain is not there to hurt you. It's there to help you.
Right.
And I said in one of our meetings, and I wrote it down, and I've been using it, talking to people that I coach about, their health, is sometimes the thing you need the most is the thing that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like sometimes it's the truth, and I agree with you that sometimes we have to listen to people and hear their story, but there are times, and I don't know when, I can't give you specific examples. There are times when it's not appropriate to coddle somebody.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's kid was, he's just turned 7. So she does a lot of things for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have Taco Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm.
She started to make like his taco and like toast the tortilla with the melted cheese on it, put the sour cream with the guacamole, the hot sauce, and she's doing this. And she's like, she looks at me and she goes, I do too much for him.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning the realization that she had was, this kid needs to start making his own freaking tacos. Like it's time. So she got to a point where she realized, you know what? I'm not benefiting this boy who's going to eventually turn into a man by doing things for him all the time.
Right.
So again, I'm not the expert, but there's times when you have to, like, so that Taco Tuesday was the first one where he goes, Mom, is my cheese melted? And she goes, no, you have to do it yourself. He didn't complain. He just kind of like, he went, oh, reality's changing. And he got up and did it all himself.
And see, that
dinner was fine.
Says a lot of good about her for
and that's hard for her because she enjoys preparing that for him. She loves loving him.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the thing is, it's really good of her now to see that, because it didn't turn into this like resentment thing where it's like, make your own.
Right.
And the kid doesn't know. You know, it's like that's trauma when children are led into this reality that somebody's going to be there for them up until a certain point. That's a learned thing in their mind. They already think, oh, okay, hey, they're going to be there for me in this way, until there's this like resentment from the adult, and they're like, make your own, do your own, blah, blah. And the kid's like, what are you talking about?
You're like, what happened?
It's not the kid's fault.
Right.
And I hate when people shame kids. I mean, that is a form of trauma. That is what causes personality disorders. That is where we get broken people. And we all do it. Not all, that's a broad thing, because there's a lot of people who are aware of it now. But
we're all guessing, and back to conditioning and learned behaviors. Like that's how we learn from our parents. So we pass it on.
I mean, so by nature we're traumatized, but that's a good example of a small thing, a seemingly small thing that can influence somebody's psyche throughout the rest of their lives. And then they associate.
And it's also, and that specific thing is important for that child, because now he knows that he can do something that his mom did. So now when it comes time for the next thing for him to be independent about, it won't seem so foreign, and he'll have this little victory that knows like, I can do this on my own.
Right. And the nice thing is to do it alongside somebody.
You got to set people up for success with some of that stuff. Like you want them to have these little victories.
Right.
Like in my health coaching group, we call it non-scale victories, and like these little wins, because it's important to have. So if you can wake up and have water within the first 30 minutes and you never drink water, that's a little win. Hey, you did that. That's a little win. You did a good job. What's the next thing? Can we get 1% better today?
Yeah.
What about if we just get 1% better? Forget about changing your life.
Yeah.
Can you get an inch closer to what you want?
Right.
So for some people who are looking to get help, maybe therapy is really scaring them. But did you Google therapist in your area? Maybe that's your first step.
Right.
Whatever that is that sort of gets you going.
It's their perception. It's people's perception of it. This drives me nuts. And
I was afraid to ask for help. So that's why I'm on board with you on this project, because I think, really, you might just be a catalyst for somebody looking to change.
Yeah, that's
and for 90% of people, you may not be.
Yeah, that's the whole thing going into, is like, I'm not gonna create this thing where I'm expecting people to just hop on board, because it's easier to get people on board when it's this like happy-go-lucky perks are involved, and all this like shiny stuff. It's harder to get people involved in something that's raw. But it's happening nowadays. I see a trend. People are wanting more raw, wanting more.
They want authenticity.
For sure. Yeah. And that's what I want in my life too. But about trauma, well, I was actually saying real quick about therapy, and then I want to go back to the trauma thing, is people think, like, you made a joke last time. It was funny. You're like, I'm going to pop some therapy. Like, you can't go to therapy. And I know this is like an extreme point to make. It's a definite, like you saying the word can't, but it's almost impossible to like, you go to therapy once, you got to go twice or 3 times to really know. You're not going to go, and the therapist is not going to magically like make you have this, you got
to brush your teeth every day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully people are doing that. Yeah.
But that's the idea.
Yeah.
It's like you go to the dentist to get your teeth cleaned and your teeth are white.
Right.
It's kind of like going to a therapist. Like you may feel great when you walk out of there. You may feel worse. It depends.
Yeah.
But you walk out of there. But if you don't like floss every day and brush your teeth, you're going to go back to that same state.
I think therapy's working when you don't feel you don't feel bad when you come out, or good, which you can. That's fine. Obviously, everybody has their own experience. But when you feel more aware of your triggers, more aware of your background, but you're an observer, and the therapist helps you become the observer. The psychotherapist helps you become the observer, because they're asking you, they're reading your language, listening to your language as you're speaking, and picking up on all these things. And they're asking all these questions, and it's getting you to go into your own psyche and to shake hands with yourself and become more familiar with your own inner child. And when you leave, a good feeling is, I get a good feeling. It's almost like I walk out with my inner child, and I'm like, okay, this is what it is, and you're more aware of it. And it's that awareness. There's magic in awareness. There really is. But my trauma, this is the part where it's kind of really difficult to talk about. And back to the approval thing, it's like, when you're a child and you're experiencing bullying, and you're experiencing, this very weird imbalance of your peers like don't like you, but your teachers really love you. It's this, there's such an imbalance, you know. It kind of should be the other way around. Not
But
sure.
it actually was balance.
Yeah,
If you really think about it, because the idea when you get bullied is that nobody likes me, and then here are these other people. It's just not. So that's again, back to the fantasy versus reality. Your fantasy was you wanted the class to like you. The reality was the teachers liked you.
Right.
In between was the gap.
The child's mind wants the peers to, you're right. You know, you're absolutely right.
But you did have love in your life. Like it would be easy to look at that moment and say, nobody loves me. I don't have anybody. It's just not how you wanted it.
At the time, it didn't feel like that because I was when you're in your formative
you're
years.
a kid. You don't know how to process things. When you're in your
early years, you don't. Yeah, you kind of need that. You need your peers, and that lack of that can affect you. So what's the part you started to say and then you didn't? What's the part that's hard for you to talk about? Well, the thing is, and this is a little bit of a delicate thing because I don't want my family to ever think that I'm hating on them, but truth is truth. And Yonkers Italian family, grew up in Yonkers. And I would be, probably correct in saying that most families function like this, especially at that time where mental health wasn't really talked about as much. But when you come home and you're sensitive and you're angry and you're agitated, people will tell you, drop it, get over it. Things will be okay.
Just my dad would still laugh about it. My dad would say, stop being a rosemary.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that. And that was like, I was like a little triggered by that.
But that's a common thing in my family. But that's the old Italian. My family's from Yonkers and Italian too. So that was, the 80s.
Because I am familiar with that feeling. Yeah.
But that was common. And it wasn't, again, like they actually think that they're helping and that's how they know how to communicate whatever they're feeling. But that's what they were also taught. So that was their best tool at that time to help you with that situation.
And you grow to realize that. That's the awareness part. You realize, oh, okay. And the awareness is like medicine. It's medicinal. Awareness is hypnotic in and of itself. And it just like changes your perspective. So I don't have any ill feelings towards family about that. But the fact of the matter is like when you're told that, it conditions you. You don't know. You're then told that, okay, your problems don't matter.
And you also don't know how. So when somebody says to me, stop being a rosemary, I'm like, all right, now I'm just, because I'm crying.
Yeah.
So now it's just the only thing that I know how to do as a 10-year-old being called a rosemary and I'm crying. The only thing I know how to do was to try and stop tears.
Yeah. And
but I'm not fixing anything.
There's the pivotal point. It's like, exactly.
So I was repressing.
Right. People don't want to feel uncomfortable.
And I became more sensitive, probably.
There you go.
Yeah.
People try to stop us from, especially crying. When people tell kids to stop crying, I think that's the most, I'm going to use this word, disgusting thing because now obviously there's a difference between being a brat in some cases and, but
no, tantrums, you gotta, tantrums are tough.
Man. Yeah. And
being around kids has really been an eye opener for me. Like really seeing and seeing how the parent, because I'm not the actual parent, seeing how the mother has to like balance all of these things and try to what's the best thing at this time. What do I have energy for? It's 9 o'clock at night. It's also bedtime. It's like all these things.
And I have 4 siblings and a lot of them have kids. But I know that a lot of parents out there, if this ever gets out to parents, they probably like, what the hell does he know? So he doesn't even.
They're definitely going to say that.
Yeah. But I just want to address this to them. It's that you're in it. You're in it and you're a parent. Yes. And I'm not a parent, but you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reaction would be like, yeah, exactly. I'm in it. So what do you know? Well, what I know is that the human mind, when you tell somebody to stop doing something, first of all, they're going to do it more.
Stop thinking about a pink elephant. Stop thinking about a pink elephant.
Right. So whether or not you're a parent, that's that's irrelevant. The mind will do what it will do, parent or not, and the other part is that especially with children in their early years, when you tell them not to do something that they're feeling, the only way they know how to emote what they're feeling, that invalidates their experience. And
true.
And that experience is real to them. And the more you get to know why, not why, but what's going on with them and why they feel the way they feel. People like to dumb children down like, oh, they're not rational. They don't have their rational minds developed yet. You can't reason with them. That's bull. you can absolutely sit down with a child and get to the root of why they're feeling the way they're feeling. Now, some kids neurologically have
You have to treat it
disorders.
case by case,
Right. Like you
individual
were
by
saying this
individual.
last week, and I became aware of that. Like some kids, unfortunately, are wired to be psychopaths.
Well, this is what I was. So for those that were
Different
not
nervous systems.
in our
Yeah.
meeting last week, I was talking about how one of my friends has twins, and they're like 6 or 7 years old, and he said they're raised exactly the same. They
Right.
have the same expectations, obligations, rules, all these things, access. And one kid will be like, "Hey, I'm thirsty. I'm gonna go get myself a drink of water." The other kid, so a small example, the other kid will just like he'll die
Yeah.
if you're not like there with a bottle of water, being like, "You need to drink water." So he's like, "I don't know what to do. I raise these kids exactly the same. One is like he's almost like self-sufficient and he takes care of himself. Obviously, has to feed him and cook for him, but sometimes he'll just like go get himself a snack. And the other kid just requires so much attention, and they're both raised the same way. So you can do a lot of things. You never know what's going to happen. Like you look at your brothers and sisters and my brothers and sisters, like we were all brought up in the same house at somewhat different times. Like it's not exactly a same controlled environment as twins, but we all turned out different.
Yeah.
I can't even explain it. There's a picture I'll show you after of my brother. He's 6 years older than me. He went completely bald at like 19.
Wow.
And look at this.
Yeah,
I
you're
can't.
completely
It's like
out. You have you're like,
so. I mean, obviously,
Jesus,
that's
yeah.
not due to upbringing, but I'm just saying, like, it's just you. So much of this, you never know.
Yeah, but the thing that we can do is give it a chance.
Yeah,
You know, and
for
that's
sure.
what this whole thing is about. Is like you're giving it a.
So wait, what's the hard thing for you to talk about? Is it the family stuff?
No, that all is the groundwork for what made it difficult for me to deal with the rejections that happened after that. So, this is the first time I'm publicly talking about this. It's when I was studying classical organ, I was enrolled in the Juilliard School for pre-college. It's like it's a Saturday program, and that everything about that was pretty good, you know. And I'd go to, so aside from that, I would go to summer programs to continue my studies, not tied to Juilliard, but specific to the organization that I belong to. And of course, the pipe organ is a small community of players, but that could be a good thing also because you become close with people, but it's a bad thing because you become close with people. So, but that's not the issue. The issue is that there was a teacher who we, you know, as a young class, or at the time idolized, and took my playing very seriously at one of these summer programs, 2008, before I was going to audition for him. And I played in a class during that summer program. And then, to make a long story short, really, we took a ride to this. It was in Massachusetts, but we then took the train to New York City when it was done together. And he told me that, you know, I had a really good chance of getting into his school if I do this and this and this and this and this, you know, very vivid in my memory. And come time for the audition, I did my audition, and I remember being relatively positive minded, and the playing was pretty good. And I say, people are like, well, if it's pretty good, then, but you don't really remember entirely. But I had people listen. I didn't ask friends who were at the school to listen, but they listened and they affirmed. They were like, it was, and then both the people on the panel, the teacher and another person, said, you know, positive things, and it felt good. You know, you just get the feeling after you do something like that you're in a upward swing, you know. And so a month goes by. I just lost my grandmother. I think she just died that year. Month goes by, I didn't hear anything, and then I get a rejection. So this was somebody who told me all these things, and I'm still even like a little nervous to be specific with names and stuff.
Yeah, but that's not important.
Yeah. Not that anything would happen. It's just I'm that way. I don't I don't feel the need to exploit, you know?
Right.
So, this was a very bad moment in my life. You know, my grandmother had just died, got this rejection, and right after that, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm.
So boom, boom, boom. And I didn't have really any backup schools because the person I was working with at the time, not the one from St. Patrick's, really limited me to only 3 schools, only auditioned at 2. And the other one I didn't even audition at. And I wanted to expand at the time and be like, well, why don't I audition here, 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 here? And
you had this rejection, and you were talking earlier just about having like expectations surrounding it. So now you've not only were you rejected, but I imagine you feel like you let somebody down, right?
Myself.
Oh, good. It wasn't somebody else.
No,
that's healthy. You had that going for you.
Yeah, but it was self-sabotaging.
Right.
It was terrible. Well, I felt like I let my first organ teacher down. He always used to. He went to this school, and he used to say to me that I would get in, and all these positive affirmations that he meant very well. You know, he has nothing to do really with anything negative, but hearing that, again, being really young and being in that professional scene at an early age, working at churches in the city at an early age, like very big names, I was shrouded with this like protection of, oh, you're all this validation, which was unhealthy in some ways, but it did not prepare me for this rejection. I was just always struggling with interpersonal connections, like with peers even, and it just, that the whole feeling of not connecting with people in the way that I felt I could connect, and they were not receptive to, because again, I was like not above, I didn't mean it like that, like I was mentally and emotionally a little more advanced, I think, and it was just hard to me, and I found a lot of solace and peace in this person and in this school and in this trajectory, and it was completely flipped on its side. And my teacher at the time was even surprised. He's like, what is going on? You need to ask the reasons why, you know? Well, I tried to, and I got no answer, no reasons, no constructive criticism, nothing. So that was another huge thing in my life that left a dent, is that people will build you up and throw you down without explanation. So that has been a big thing that I've been struggling with ever since, because it's happened a few other times after that in same situations with school. So I didn't end up going to school in the fall. I ended up finding a school in Cleveland, Ohio, and Cleveland Institute of Music, which is held in high regard in the conservatory world in its own way. Like members of the Cleveland Orchestra, which is a top 5 orchestra, teach at the school. And the organ teacher there is super respected in the and I adore him to this day. He lifted me up from the depths, and he built me. Will go down as, for me in my life, one of the biggest people in my life, who brought me back.
Those people are so important.
Oh, I adore this person. But it didn't work out there because they raised the tuition so high the year after, and I couldn't afford it, so I had to leave. And it just felt like, another. Then I started working. This all happened in order. You know, I worked at a church in Manhattan, which was a good situation for 4 months. It was a guest assistantship. And is that the right word? Assistantship?
I've never heard of that, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, we'll go with it. Hey,
assistantship
or assistant position, whatever. And the person there was very supportive, my boss there, but had some issues with his relationship and brought me into those issues sort of in his own manipulative way, honestly. And like a perception was built around that friendship that I was intervening and I wasn't. And there was a lot of resentment there built into that foundation of that work, relationship and other way. Well, the work relationship was really good. And then we became close friends, but I had to keep my distance a little because it became clear that I was sort of a pacifier. and rumors were created in that community, in that church, and it's a high profile place for a musician to be working at, and it could very well have been a trajectory I at the time wanted to continue in that route, but my name was sort of thrown to the ground a bit because rumors were made up, and I was banned from that building when his boss came back. Yeah. So it was very difficult. So this boom, 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 boom. All these things happen at once. So I'd lost a lot of faith in the path that I created and from an early age. And all this building up and tearing down and led me to, I guess, all this anxiety and yeah, I wrote about it one day, I mean, lots of days, took to this technique of 3-day writing, free writing, went to therapy, completely stopped playing organ for a while and worked at Starbucks for 2 months. First time ever working in a customer service job for 2 months. That's ever, like, I was always kind of spoiled in that way. I would collect $300 checks for playing weddings for an hour as like a 13-year-old organist. But it really helped a lot to work there because, I mean, I didn't like it, but it helped. It helped to like become exposed to people and how people behave, especially when they want the skinny lattes and they think they're actually doing something healthy for themselves. But anyway,
I always wonder what it's like for like the people working in Starbucks, because now they have like the cameras and stuff. Like you see the person like pull up and like order something, and I just wonder what they're really thinking and saying behind that camera.
Yeah. I didn't work there when there were cameras.
Oh man. Yeah, you guys probably said some.
I worked during a renovation. Oh yeah. Oh no, I've always kept myself pretty cool about things, but it was intimidating for me. It was my first time doing something like that. And there were a lot of attitudes because I was lucky in that I had the life I had as a musician, and some of them were musicians too, and struggling in ways that I never was familiar with until, I don't like to call it a struggle.
No, those jobs are good because you kind of like, you get to reset a little bit. You get to pause out on life and, again, like back to clearing stuff out. And I don't know, you get to really like, so I go to Bible study, not because I haven't been in a while, but I don't go because I'm trying to like learn the Bible. I go as a barometer.
Oh, interesting.
And I check to see, like, I get feelings when I walk in there. So sometimes I'll walk in there and it stirs up a lot of things. Like, I'm like, whoa, I need to like not because they're Bible thumping and I'm like, I need to fix something.
There's a lot of human in there. There's a lot of human in the Bible.
There's just people talking about problems and like real stuff. And sometimes I go in there and I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I'm in a good state. Like, I'm fine. And then sometimes I walk in there and it lets me know like I have some things to work on.
Yeah.
So working at like a job, like, because I've worked at Goodwill before, like when I was trying to figure stuff out. I worked in a lot of restaurants. I used to deliver pizza. And you get to meet different types of people. You get to see where they're at in their lives, like just anybody. Because even like in here doing the film stuff, not just anybody walks in here. There's certain types of people walk in. They're business owners. They want to do something, a certain message. I'm not seeing anybody. When you work at a place like Starbucks, you literally see anybody, all walks of life.
Addicts. You see people who are like addicted to this stuff.
But you see them all. you see the single mom with a bunch of kids in the van. You see like a younger woman with nobody.
Please, they're mostly pulling up in Mercedes and Range Rovers and
and then you see like millennials. You see like a kid
I'm
pull up.
I'm generalizing, but it's so true.
You see a group of teenagers pull, like you see everybody, and then you get to see, like, again, I wish you had the camera because you get to see how like these people behave a little bit. But I'm just saying it's a good time to like, oh, this is life. This is what this person does. This is how this person acts, and you get to decide whether you realize it or not. Like I would like to, when I get my life back on track, because I think Starbucks is like a place before you get to the place that you're supposed to be at. I think that's a good like stepping stone.
Right.
But you get to see like when you meet different personalities, oh, I like that quality. I want to have that, or I don't like that quality. I have to make sure that I don't become like that.
Right.
Without judge. It's really not a judgment. It's preferences stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's clarity. There's a lot of clarity that I experienced for sure in working in that situation, and also working in the church. Like my boss gave me a book about like the psychology of the workings of a family or a church community, like as a whole system. And I mean, the thing is human behavior. I always go to that. I really don't have an interest in hearing about all the time about like where people are. I do have an interest in hearing where people are coming from. I should correct myself, but my point is like foundation wise, it's always human behavior. Human behavior is human behavior. That is the like death, the equal playing field. And while all
true.
human behavior is very dicey and choppy and different, and who has this and who's this and who's got this disorder, who it's still we're still a system, sort of in control and out of control, and that's our meeting point is our behavior and our ecosystem within, and it's like, yeah, you can be in this industry or that industry, or a musician or a poet or a construction worker or a politician or a preacher. You're going to be functioning at your basic level as a human being with the behaviors of a human being. So when somebody tries to tell me something like in business, oh, this is very popular in business, okay, it's also very popular in human behavior because it is human behavior. And so don't corner things or pigeonhole things. That's another thing about this whole project I'm doing, is that exposing our human behavior. You might struggle with bipolar. You might struggle with a personality disorder. Well, somebody who has a personality disorder might not actually want to become involved. Narcissists and sociopaths don't. Unfortunately, in many ways, they don't pay mind to stuff like this. It's not about the whole; it's about them, and which is unfortunate. But it's a disorder, and to say it's unfortunate also discredits the fact that they have a disorder. So I shouldn't say that, but it's for everybody, really, even the narcissist and sociopath. But the point is that we all come to the table with something, and the important thing is to gather around that something, or gather around with the understanding that we have this common thread. We have this common foundation of humanity. And I know for some people that's hard to grasp onto, be like, but my problems that, are different from, yeah, that's the whole point. We're just creating a space where it's safe to, and I don't like that word. I mean, I like the word safe space, but I also don't, I have a weird relationship with that.
I'm on the same page.
A weird,
yeah.
But in its most wholesome sense, like a safe space to be yourself. You know what I mean? And it's a safe environment to not feel like you have to prove anything, or you have to even, expose too much of yourself, but just a place where you're going, like sort of like in solidarity, where, you're recognizing that there is a struggle, and struggle is okay. And, the heartbeat of struggle is human. And it's so my trauma is multifaceted. I think most people's trauma is multifaceted, or circumstantial, just based on one event. Of course, could be like an accident, or sadly a rape situation, or domestic violence. It could be.
And is that what some of your, because we keep on talking about stories to songs, but is that what some, like, what kind of
people
stories
that I've spoken with?
Yeah. What kind of stories are you, because you're basically, what you're doing is you're taking, just, I mean, you can explain it too, but just talking about, because we haven't talked about what stories to songs really is.
Yeah, I know. And we were trying to getting into the backbone of it. Yeah.
But that's great. I mean, we just spent, hey, we've only been talking for an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh.
But so you just spent an hour 45 minutes really talking about, what I'm hearing is why this is important to you.
Yeah.
And a little bit about your past, but now just bringing it to the present.
Good to, actually, I should say, for anybody listening, I know it's a heavy topic and it's a lot to take in, and that we don't always want to talk about these things in depth, but it feels so good to just like let it out publicly, and to go into the backbone of it, into the DNA of it, and where it comes from, and why I even care to do it now about it. So it's just hard to get people to participate in this, and to talk to them, and for them to show up with the candor necessary, and the frankness and the honesty and the rawness. And this really is for people who, and I don't want to like limit it, but it has to be an open forum. You have to be, I hate to be conditional, but you have to be ready to expose yourself in this way. I mean, that's half the reason, fully the reason why I'm doing this today, is I'm exposing just about not every, but I will do more over time.
So you're finding stories that fall under what kind of categories or topics?
Everything. So, for instance,
about the struggle.
Yeah.
Right. So you're finding stories about the struggle, whatever that means in their life. You're taking that story, you're turning it into a song.
Yeah. And what I want people to also understand is that it's not like a folk music, and I love folk music, but it's not a folk music format where I made that entire concept up. But you'll have like campfire folk sessions where we're talking about stories of the town of the past, and which is beautiful. You know, I would love to actually try. I would love to fly to Colorado around, like, who's that guy, Mark Knopfler, the folk singer. I don't think he's in Colorado, but I just picture Colorado and like a campfire.
I don't picture Colorado. I picture
he actually did it.
Kentucky.
He's in YouTube, a YouTube video of him with all these people like outside singing these folk songs, which is beautiful. But this is not that. This is not that. Poetry, like I'm not completely direct. I do tell a story in my songs, and you can completely hear that, but it's not folk music. Again, I have like about 4 songs that are like very much so folk music. I don't like to sing them anymore because but I think it's beautiful art. Anyway, it has a bit of that. It undoubtedly has a little bit of that, a feeling of that, because you're bringing people into the picture, right? Community. That's a whole culture. But trying not to make this really a culture, trying to make it more of just like an environment, which people could say, well, it's a culture.
It's another tool. It's another conduit.
Yeah. So to the point. Okay, ready. So I've had people who, without, obviously not giving names away, but when they become part of the people who choose to become part of the series, you'll know their names, who struggle with disabilities, and who have struggled with and continue to struggle with, though in a lesser way, suicidal thoughts. And I mean, this plagues this person. Not being good enough, self-worth, same person. Really shaky family relationship. People who have lost parents, young people, younger than me, who have lost parents and who've had to just make it work. In fact, I know 2 people a little younger than me who've lost both parents. And one in particular who is from a different country and came here to study that which caused his mother to die, ultimately cancer. And it was such a driving force.
Oh, he came here to study cancer research because his mom was struggling. Okay.
And so
just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, they're both gone, mom and dad, year back to back. And he lost a best friend in an accident, all in one swoop. So he changed his reality and came here and decided to turn it around. And he still struggles, of course. A young woman who dealt with abuse from a stepfather, and was silenced, by her mother's refusal to address it head on. They disappeared on her, and her mom disappeared on her for a while. And somebody who was blamed for, at a very young age, his twin brother's disability, because he almost drowned somebody pushed him into water at a young age, and the person that I'm talking about was blamed for that by his mother for nearly killing his brother, his twin brother. And living with that is like something he having to live with that specifically. I think all of these stories are just incredible, but like to be at a young age blamed for almost killing, like not even having done that, but like your mom thinks you almost killed your brother, and now this brother of yours is impaired for life, you know?
Especially if you look for your mom for so many things that, you know, their children look to their mom for.
Right.
Like for validation.
Right. Valid.
Or
Exactly.
for the love. And
right.
if you're going to your mom and there's blame, I can see how that could be be hard.
Yes. There are stories about health, you know, diagnosis, diseases. There are some stories about it's the other story that was.
But I just wanted to get the gist of it. I mean, because that was a lot of topics, but
yeah.
So you find these stories that have to do with any one of these things.
Yeah.
You make a song out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
And then Coming Here happened. Because we kind of shifted it a little bit into a video series, because it became more than just the production of the song. It's about the full experience of the person, and a great way of capturing that is through video. And brilliant idea of doing a series, you know, of like 11 to 16 minute length videos featuring the person and like a conversation with them. My inspiration for the song, you know, the production of the song, and now just most recently this idea that in these episodes we'll have live performance of the song at the studio down the road where the songs will be recorded, and having a audience there to experience it, really creating a community. So it's a multimedia thing. It's a multi-layered thing, and it's gonna showcase the full spread of the experience, I think, and even touching on the specific topic and professionals relative to that topic. So say it's about domestic violence. Well, maybe there's an organization who can pair up with the video or pair up with, you know, and offer resources to people in that specific. So if there's 5 episodes all touching on different things, independent organizations or persons or professionals might be attached to it, maybe interviewed in one of the videos or a few of the videos, and offer insight. And definitely these can be useful guides and resources, fully packaged, not in a clinical sense, not like, oh, here's a topic of domestic violence, or here's a topic of bipolar, or here's a topic of rape, or here's a topic of this or loss or blah, blah, blah. And just like boring people for 11 minutes about, you know, just the topic, rather using art, music, as it's always been used, as a depiction of the human condition and the human experience, creating vignettes of a person's thought process, experience, and process. It's almost like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say their name. They're public.
Wait.
Yeah. Oh. You're like, don't.
If you're not sure.
They're verified. I mean, I don't know. The Moth.
Okay.
Do you know of the Moth?
What's the Moth? The
Moth is a they're on Instagram, but it's a social, well, it's not a social thing. It's a people get up on stage and tell their stories. Simple.
Cool.
In New York City, all different cities in this country, but it's almost, it's like Humans of New York too. You know,
that was like what there was, like the random recording booths. Was that the Humans of New York? Did you ever hear about that?
I don't know.
Do you know what I'm talking about by any chance? There was like a thing where you can just, that's not Humans of New York. There was a thing that New York City did a while ago, and basically like it was like a recording booth, and people could just go up and just share something.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
And just randomly, and like once you walked into the booth, it would just start recording, and it was, I think it got put into some like library. It went into like some archive thing, I believe. I'll give a little rant real quick, because, well, you know what's interesting about Natalie and I are obviously producing
Mhm.
stories to songs on the visual aspect. So Good For You Productions got started really by doing a project on this movie about a girl documentary called Someday Melissa. Someday Melissa was about the tagline, I believe, was loss, hope, and suffering. I might be getting that wrong. I forget. I finished this project like 10 years ago, so
Yeah.
I don't even recall my own stuff. But so we were in a similar position that you are, meaning this girl, Melissa, had died at the age of 19 years old from complications with bulimia.
Oh
So her
wow.
mom, Judy Averin, fell asleep that night. Usually she waits up for Melissa, and she walked outside and saw Melissa's car in the driveway, ran to the car, and she found Melissa basically dead at that moment. Like she fell asleep in the car, listening to one of her favorite songs or something like that.
Wow.
And she had been bad. She was diagnosed with bulimia when she was 13. Went through, had every treatment possible. Went through all the institutions. Went through Renfrew, which was it's like a nationally known institute, which is in New Jersey. She got sent away to boarding camps. Like they just tried everything, and they had the resources to do it unsuccessfully. Obviously she died from complications of that.
Yeah.
2 months after her daughter died, she had contacted me.
Wow.
And so what's crazy about that, and I'll give you more into the story because it's crazy how things happen. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to be here now. And I leave up, I mean, just so you know, like that was that's see that poster up there with me with the camera with my
Mhm.
ponytail. My hair's getting that long again. But so I had a meeting with Judy,
Mhm.
and she's telling me that her daughter just died like 2 or 3 months ago, which her daughter died on May 5th of 2009. Good For You Productions was formed May 9th,
Wow.
2009.
Wow.
Without knowing, I didn't know this family and she didn't know me. So I formed this company because I wanted to do good stuff. So now she gets wind about me from, actually, I knew Melissa's therapist. So the therapist said, I need you to meet this woman. I think you guys would be the perfect fit for each other. And I had no idea what was going on. So now I go to Judy's house for a meeting, like an intro meeting, kind of like me and you
Mhm.
had, like just to get to know each other. And I'm sitting there with Judy, and she's describing everything to me, and she says, my daughter, she wrote in this journal, and one of the pages started out with someday. So she was writing to herself. She said, um, someday I will hold a job for more than 3 days. Someday I'll have a boyfriend. Someday, and it was just all these some days. And the last line said, someday I'll make a movie that will change lives.
Wow.
After the therapist saw this, she gave because Judy shared the Melissa's journal with the therapist. The therapist said, you need to make a movie out of this, a documentary, and I know the guy. So that's how I ended up in that meeting.
Wow.
So now Judy's telling me all of these things, and Judy's telling me the whole story about Melissa and everything else. And she goes, so I've been talking about myself for like an hour, and it was like an hour. She's like, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? So I was 20, I think I was 24, 25 years old at the time. And I just started out, I just graduated from college. So that was like my story. I was like, well, I just graduated from Emerson College last year. And she goes, stop. And it wasn't last year, it was like 3 years ago, 3 years before that. She goes, stop. And I was like, what? She goes, Melissa got accepted into Emerson 2 days before she died.
Oh my God. That's so weird.
So she goes, you don't have to say anymore. She goes, you're hired.
Wow.
She gave me a check for, obviously the project was, it was something that we worked on for 2 years, but she gave me a deposit right there on a check.
Wow.
Had a couple of zeros in it. No one say how much, but it was enough to get the project going. The company like fully started. Remember, I just said I formed the company. I didn't have this office that we're sitting in yet. I was still faking it till I made it. So I'm sitting in like my parents' patio,
Right.
like, pretending like I had an editing suite. It was just a little laptop, which I still have. I'll never throw it out. Doesn't
Yeah,
work
of
anymore.
course, yeah.
So I'm saying all of this because, Good For You Productions got started to not to have the answers for anything, and not to be not to virtue signal and say like we got it figured out and these are the stories and these are the things that you need to pay attention to, but more is to help, as I was saying to you before, to be a catalyst and a conduit for whatever it was. So with eating disorders, it was not saying we have the answers, this is how you treat somebody with an eating disorder, but it was just saying, look, this is actually happening. This is happening to your neighbors. This might be happening in your own home.
Mhm.
We don't know how to we don't know how to fix this. It's definitely something that needs to be addressed. But the most important thing, because we just said, just stick to the story. We always wonder like how to tell a story. And our advice to ourselves was always just stick to the story. Just tell Melissa's story.
Yeah.
And we realized it was just about creating awareness about this.
Yes.
And that's all it
Yeah.
was. And don't
That's exactly right.
overcomplicate. Don't try to
Right.
make this too
Totally.
like, don't try to make this a movie.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
tell the story.
That is
And
so
the
parallel.
story speaks for itself.
Exactly. And I think that you guys, I think that the reason why I have so much clarity about my own project is because of being around you guys for a while now. I've needed it, and listening to that is inspiring because I'm now in a place where I know it's about awareness. It's not, I said, I think once before, let the person's story will speak for itself. And the song is the songwriter. I know that sounds ultra humble and like, oh, he's just, oh, please, it's just an artsy thing to say.
Well, here's the thing. If the story can't speak for itself, the story's not that good.
No. And it's right.
Or your version of it is not that good.
And it shouldn't be my version of it. It's the story. A person's story says, will say what it will say. And I just want to be there to create a vignette of it, because music is my way of communicating in a healing way and in a real way. And it's my way of communicating a message. I wrote a song for somebody who's very special to me. I wrote a song for him about his experience with loss, losing a parent at a young age. All I did was I'd known about this for a while, but this individual doesn't, I guess over time, of course you don't lament over these things publicly, but it hurts still. My mom lost her father when she was 20, and to this day she cries about it. But there's a special place in my heart for this person, and because of that parallel, my mom has this pain, and this person certainly has this pain also. And I read a reflection that he wrote and about his loss and approaching an anniversary, a big anniversary, and it made me, something happened in that moment. It was like not human. There was something about that interaction between myself and, this experience, like reading this thing, that just ignited something within me to write a song about it. And people say, it's like, well, what do you didn't know this, his parent, you didn't know, but people aren't saying that. That's the voice inside, but that's, there's always that voice inside saying what you think people are saying, and it's bull crap. People,
the little liar.
Yeah.
So that stuffed toy that over there, you see that?
Yeah.
On the next to the boxing glove.
Yeah. Yeah.
His name is Alf.
And that's the voice.
He's the little liar.
Yeah. He's the liar.
So what I did, no, and I'm serious. That's the little liar. So that's Alf. And I actually had an acronym for it. ALF meant something, but I forget now. But I externalized the little liar, because when the little liar's in your head, he can appear, or she, whoever you want to look at him. He could appear. You can make him as big as you want.
Yeah.
And he could be dominant. So when I took him out of my head and I named him and I put him in that stuffed animal.
That's clever. That's awesome.
Now he doesn't. Now he's look at. You
He's
think
just
I'm going to
hanging
listen
out.
to that guy?
He's hanging out near the punching bag.
That's my little liar. That's the little voice inside my head that tells me I can't do something.
Yeah.
So I put him there every day.
That's awesome.
I'm serious. That's why he's there.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I've dialed that liar down. That liar existed a lot when I was transitioning from the institution mindset to my own. But so that, I think that's my process, is like this feeling of like overcome, I should say, by this emotion for a person and their experience, and it just writes itself. Like my own story about feeling silenced when I was little, being told often to drop it, when I'd have conflict arise, going to the people that I love the most with this angst that they didn't know what to do with because they didn't know, and it makes them uncomfortable. And so the best way to shut it out is to say, drop it or just get over it. And that made me feel quite silenced a lot, silenced. And then not having answers from people that you look up to when they reject you, or you love. It's almost like you're undermined. You're not paid, you're not really you don't feel worth it, which is a lie. It's not true, but you feel this reality, and we want to damper that so quickly. We're like, oh, but that's not true. Or it's like, it's well-intended, to be there for the person and try to be positive. But there's this whole false positivity movement going on, and you got to have the process. So it's like when somebody says, oh, but that's not true. You can't rationalize with irrational. When you're in an irrational state of mind, you need to breathe that irrational state of mind and anybody around you who is just there with you, they're afraid that they're enabling it by not
That's right.
being positive. But you let go of, and this is for anybody listening, is like, if somebody is struggling around you and is lamenting or pining or complaining even in your eyes, or just quote, won't get over it, you have to give them that space to do what they're doing and just be around. You're not enabling it. If you try to make them feel better too quickly, maybe they'll have a little bit of relief in the moment, but it's not good for the long term. The person that they're going to go to the most for comfort and for healing is the person who they can just be themselves around unapologetically. It's up to you to decide if you want to be that person, because you have to be equipped yourself, and your energy has to be in the right spot to be able to give that to that person. But if you decide to be that person for them, you have to be in it for the whole way through, because they're not leeching onto you. You have to be strong enough with yourself to feel like you can give them that attention and not think that you need anything in return. You have to be present with them, and you're going to find that person will eventually you will see their healing process. Many on the periphery won't see their healing process because they're not with them, but the healing process is so incremental, and people see fast results. People just want fast results. And even people who feel uncomfortable around those who are struggling, that's why they pop the whole positivity pill. They're like, just get better now because I'm uncomfortable. Get better. That's what they're really saying, is like, get better now. I'm uncomfortable. Stop being so negative. It bothers me. This is just self-serving and terrible to do. And if that's the kind of person you're going to be around another individual, even if you mean tough love, which is the word, and people love this whole tough love thing. And tough love is, I think of it differently. But people live to be all tough love.
That's right. Yeah.
And it is dangerous. I know some people are tough love with me. I steer clear. And I love these people, but it doesn't do me good. I don't need somebody to nurture me or coddle me. I need somebody to be present with me. And if it's too much for them, they're honest. And I appreciate
So again,
that.
back to the individual. It's gonna be different for different people.
Right.
I know personally, because Natalie and I, when we do videos, we have to give a little bit of tough love to some people. Yeah. Meaning, if somebody's like, let's say we have to prepare something, we have to let people know if they're not ready. Not ready in a mental state, but like if something to say or a script,
it's
or
an awareness thing again, back to awareness,
or just being like, you're taking too long to respond, or like you owe us money.
Right. Yeah.
But we're not going to be like, hey.
But it's awareness. Like if you're with somebody who's tough love, if you say something and they catch it and they say, but you said this, did you catch that? That's going to be uncomfortable for the person. And it might seem like the person who's saying that will say, I'm just being honest with you. That's tough love.
That's
it's
right.
not,
no,
it's
right.
What it is it's just you're reiterating what you're getting from the person, and you're saying it again and making them aware of what they're saying. That's not tough. It's just interaction.
That's good.
It's good. Yeah, it's good for you. But for me, I have, in my own experience, like my own struggles, the people that I gravitate towards are the ones who are present with me, who listen, and who let me just go through the process. And of course, I have songwriting to help me with that. I'm fortunate. So when I wrote the song Silence, that's my anthem.
Mm-hmm.
I use the pronouns they a lot because I didn't want it to just be about me, because I know that a lot of people with higher perspective over time and with age, I know that a lot of people experience what I experience. So the first line is, they speak and all you hear is silence. So I'm going to dissect this song a little bit. They speak, because I hate to I hate to say this, but I think the lyrics are really good because I wrote them. Any song that I really love and is close to me, I write in at least 15 or 20 minutes straight, like in one sitting. The music itself might go through some shifts here and there, but they speak and all you hear is silence. So the idea of like being a little more intellectually or emotionally advanced at a young age, sometimes I would say something that was a little more emotionally and intellectually advanced for my age, and my peers would think of that as like, they wouldn't think of anything of it because it didn't matter to them. It felt, they speak and all you hear is silence. You could say all these great things and all these intellectually stimulating things, and a lot of people don't give a rat's behind, So to them, it's like they're hearing is silence. Words from mindfulness and years spent on their own or all alone. So words from mindfulness, like, kind of reiterating the first line, climbing up the tree of knowledge, bite the apple, feel the darkness in their veins. So it's like a double-edged sword, being emotionally intelligent at a young age or being emotionally sensitive and in tune. Climbing up the tree of knowledge, that depiction in, biblical, if you want to call it reality or fantasy, I don't know. Bite the apple. The apple is the no-no, right? So you bite the apple, feel the darkness in their veins. Now, this is where I get controversial in my song, and people wouldn't think of it like this. Now, I am not part of the Church of Satan. Let me just start with this.
Are you going to pull a Christian Bale moment right now?
But the church, and we're not going to talk about the Church of Satan, but I'm just saying it's misunderstood, sorely misunderstood. They don't worship the devil. But one of their things is, and I did not get this from the churches. And I'm not trying to be overly apologetic, but I want to be clear. This comes from my own experience and my own thought process. It just goes to show that other people think this too, that knowledge, and the more you know, they say the more you know, the worse off you are sometimes. Well, in this world and in society in general, throughout the ages, the pawns, the masses are told to be a certain way, so that I feel, a lot of us feel that the very powerful among us can, whether it be an ideology or organization or whatever, who's in control can control, the people who are part of the masses, So this idea that knowing the intricacies of life could be bad for you, because the more you know, the worse you are sometimes. Like, bite the apple, feel the darkness in their veins. So the more you know, you can't go back. You can't go back to not knowing, So you're gonna. It's that depiction and that correlation with the idea that Satan is this evil entity, whereas in some traditions they believe Satan to be the Enlightenment entity, which I know that's like, oh, holy crap, what is he talking about? I'm not saying that's true. I don't even, frankly, freaking believe in Satan, and that's another thing but I just don't. But the part about it that's intriguing is that we've put this underdog character to the side and said this is evil. But look at all of the powerful leaders, not all, but most powerful governments and powerful people have deemed knowledge or suppressed knowledge and kept it from people. So while this is getting very intricate, you feel at an individual level when you yourself are exposed to so much truth in your life that let's just get away from all this, like what seems to be conspiracy and like talk of like governments, and talk more about the person inside. Let's take that whole idea of biting the apple, feel the darkness in your veins, as more of a reflection of the more you know about yourself, the more you can meet yourself at a convergence of expansion or implosion, and it's up to you to decide if you want to experience that growth. And for me, I had to really make the decision to jump out of to get away from that which I was so familiar, and what caused me to be so trapped within myself, inside myself. I had to know myself, that famous know thyself, in order to experience this discomfort through my veins. But this idea of like bite the apple. So I bit the apple and I began to really understand who Anthony was. And so it's the next part of it is bite the apple, feel the darkness in their veins, gather all your truths and hide them. So this idea of don't show all your cards, which I'm doing right now.
You might not want to give away too much of this song.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Social security. Gather all your truths and hide them, which is to say, don't feel like you need to prove yourself. That's what that line is saying. Don't feel like you don't. Somebody challenged me and tried to say that, not tried to, but made this assumption that I was upset because I was not being validated about something having to do with my abilities. And my answer was, I don't really need validation from you or anybody else about this specific thing, because I'm really comfortable with it. I don't look for praise in that regard. Well, when it comes to my body of work, of course I want recognition for it, but specific things here and there that are like brushing my teeth. No, I don't need you or anybody else to tell me I'm good or bad at it, because I know it. Gather all your truths and hide. I don't need to show. Like, it doesn't mean I'm going to hide it. It's just they're close to me. Gather all your truths. They're meant for those who understand. That's the next line. So those who will. It's like this whole project. Like, people who will want to come to it will come to it. So all of this truth and all of who you are, with that line is saying, is you will attract the people who you're meant to attract. They're meant for those who, all your truths, all your knowledge, everything that you are, will naturally and organically attract the people that need to be attracted. And this is all a lesson to me, because I didn't feel this way ever before until I wrote this song, actually. Climbing up the tree of knowledge, meant for those who understand. Gather all these truths and hide them, meant for those who understand. Maybe
don't give away your whole song.
Well, it's part
just
of
the taste.
Yeah, but it's important. Maybe infants would respect them. That idea of, I don't mind sharing the lyrics. It's fine. Yeah, maybe infants would respect them. Is about, it's really talking more about the innocence of childhood, the innocence of youth, the innocence of just in general, like human innocence, is more receptive to wholesome truth, and more receptive to not only wholesome, but the wholesome truth of a person will accept you for you, because they're untainted by really ego and false perception. Yeah, I won't go any more into it, but it's also like it's really good. Yeah, it's my anthem. It's my own anthem, and that's the first song, I think, of the episode. So that's where it comes from. It comes from all this inner turmoil of feeling silenced and feeling. The chorus has this big buildup, and that's a conversation, and between myself and a higher power. It's lift me up, don't let me drown in this alone. Hold me tight and feel the earth shake underneath. Grab your pride and walk away with me. Throw it out and feel the rain fall on your feet. So it's like finally you've gotten to this point of, clarity. Or I keep saying you, but I really want to, it's like I've gotten to this point of clarity where, when you feel like you're going into your truth more and more, it's like this energetic vibe you're getting, but nobody feels it as strongly as you do. You know what I mean?
That's the zone.
Yeah. And you get like all nerdy about it and like, but people are like, well, okay, you're being you. You do you. and then that's all it is. Like a bunch of people are like, all right, you do you. And you're going through this, your own process of like, I'm coming into this realization is like, all right, cool. but it's a profound experience for all of us.
Well, enjoy your clarity for now.
Yeah.
Because you'll get some right now. And then just like life, because life is in a constant, the only thing that's consistent is that it's in a constant state of change.
Yeah.
So you'll have something in 5 years, in 10 years that you'll have to get clarity over.
Yeah, for sure. But at least like laying down, I think it's always the first, your first go at it is the hardest, like with anything,
Yeah.
So the first go at like coming into this, all my 20, I'm 29 now, but I can safely say at this point that I've been through a lot of crap in my 20s because I'm looking back at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a pretty common thing for a lot of people to go through in their 20s, go through all this turbulence in their 20s. But I will definitely have moments in my life where I'll experience these kinds of expansions, but I'll be better equipped. And so on that note, I think Stories to Songs is also a place, I like to say place in a, how should I say? It's not like a physical place, but it's a mental place where people can feel that ever growing, that continuous expansion, of the self and also just a great way to connect and make friends with people and to just like right from the get-go approach people without the facade.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do even when it's a place where you don't have to do that because we come with our fears and stuff, but at least the goal and the whole idea behind it is hope that people will feel really comfortable just like going without game face and chill and not be disturbed by that creature on the wall that you have there.
Oh, the little liar.
Yeah.
No, it's true. So before we, I guess, wrap it up.
Yeah. We've been
we're
going
just about at 2.5 hours.
Oh my God.
That's it, man. And how many times you look at your notes?
Not much, actually. Everything on there.
Yeah.
That's
how it works.
Yeah.
So for the people listening or watching,
wow.
You talked about a community. You've been saying Story to Songs. So obviously it's easy to Google Story to Songs, but how do you want people to be a part of this?
Again, it's about how willing you are to open up about something that's very true to you, very deep and very pivotal. Like, I think if I were to give you a really quick example or a quick list of things to think about if you're wanting to join,
do that.
Are you ready to be public about something very dear to you that has affected you, changed you? Ready to talk about it on camera? Are you ready for a song to be written about it? For me to use my artistic license to capture that feeling that you have and the experience and to create this vignette, this depiction of your experience? Are you ready for that to be heard by however many people hear it? And are you ready to, give of yourself in a sense where, you're going to be there for people who might want to talk to you and might want to ask you questions about your experience, or you be a resource to them. And if, it's all there's variations of that, but that's the cornerstone of it, you know. And what do you get back in return? You get the ability to just be there for people, and that's what I want to. I think the blood that runs through the veins of this thing is just that, is just to get us stimulated to be there for people in person. Social media is great as a what is it, a substitute, or as like
it's always back to a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool. I think that it's important to use it, but I don't want this to be an online community, you know.
I think that's smart.
Yeah, I want it to be first of all, I want people to walk away from the experience thinking of it as like a mental place, physical place, a living, breathing thing that is a reference, and just a cool place to experience other people and humanity. So those three things, you know, what I mentioned, if you have the candor, if you're, and I don't want to say this in a way that's going to make you feel like, oh, I'm not brave enough, but maybe you just need time, you know, it's fine. But one does have to be brave in order to talk about something very emotionally charged, you know? So I think one of the big things on our end altogether is being on camera. You know, if you are going to be a participant of Stories to Songs, you're going to have your own episode.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really talk much about that. We did a little bit, but a little bit of logistics.
No, this is like a mini series, so there will be webisodes. So, you know, whoever it is that is, if you're listening or watching to this right now, and you're like, you know what, I have this story, I want to be a part of it. Yeah, a song will be made out of your story, but also this series, like, we're going to make like a 15-minute episode
about
out of that story,
right,
and out of your life.
Right.
And I know you talking about you, Anthony, we were talking about like, how do we get people involved, and you were actually talking about you being one of the first stories, which is where silence comes from.
So
definitely. It's also important that you're not just saying, you're not just shouting. It's like, don't just talk about it, walk about it. You know, so you're actually, you know, not that you're manning up.
No, right. Yeah, that's too funny. Come full circle. This is what this all is about. No,
but you're walking the walk.
Yeah.
This is not just about saying like, hey, get your thing together. Like, you're like, I'm going through this, I'm walking with you. I think it's important to walk along with people on their journey.
On that note, this is absolutely not about this is not about being completely healed. You do not have to be out of the woods with what you're going through. You don't have to. There's the only thing is, you know, I'm not a mental health professional. This is not a mental health facility. And should you need those resources, I'd be glad to provide them and to direct. But think of yourself as sort of medicinal, if that's the right way to think of yourself, as a means, like a resource for mental health, you know? And that in and of itself is a great thing. The more selfless we are, and not like you forget yourself and like, oh, I'm not important and I can't do anything that fulfills me, selfless. I'm talking, the more you think about how you can, with your own experiences, your own story, your own purpose, help other people and bring light into their lives. Just think about it. You're doing that. The focus is not really off you, in that you have to forget yourself. You don't have to be a Mother Teresa, but like you're giving somebody hope and light and a breath of fresh air. So even if you yourself are not feel completely good about it or healed, or because I'm telling you right now, I don't either about myself. I don't. All that Silence is a song that showcases and depicts and is exemplary of my turning point, you know, with myself. And I still feel the way I do. I refer to it and it gives me a lot of strength. And I've written the song in such a way where it's like really extra because I wanted it to be that way. I wanted it to always be a reminder of freedom and of like self-exploration and the hell with it. you can be you. So in my experience with that, I hope I can share, how do I word that better? I hope that my experience with that song that I wrote with Silence and what it brings me and other people too, I hope that we can create something for you so that you can refer to it and feel that much better and know that that's going to trickle down and help other people feel. There's really no magic to this. There's no trick. There's no catch. There's nothing. It's just putting together resources and people, creative people, minds, human beings, and to do something good. That's it. That's what it comes down to.
It's great.
Yep.
Thank you for coming in here today.
Thank you for having me. This is so great.
That's Anthony Rispo.
Yeah.
Anthony Rispo, one more time, creator of Stories to Songs. Again, if you are listening to this as a recording or watching this live, get in touch with either Anthony or myself to be a part of Stories to Songs. If you are just like Stories to Songs is not for me, follow Anthony Rispo on Facebook or any place else. So you can see him where he has a concert, because he's actually pretty awesome at all things music. We got to see you jam out on some keys.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It reminds me of Ben Folds 5. I don't know if I can say that.
That was really cool to hear.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite bands.
Before you, I don't want to cut you off in your closing. I have to push the Instagram.
Push what you want.
Yeah, Instagram is Stories to, just simply one word, Stories to Songs. And my website is storiestosongs.com. I'm working on that. And as this mini-series unfolds, I'll be putting updates. And you can find all social media links on the website. But the Instagram is where I go to a lot. And then eventually over time, we'll have the episodes. And that's all I have to say. Sorry, go on.
Anthony, thank you for coming in. We're done. 2.5 hours. That's it.
Yay. Thanks. Good job, man.